All right, oh, hey, it's been a while since I got a proper live on here that's done properly, shall we say. Hey, thanks everyone for joining in. This is Broken Meeple, another top 10, which seems to be pretty popular at the moment, considering in quarter one, pretty much nothing gets released board game wise, so you don't get many reviews, you just have to get lots of lists. That's the best we can do, really. But we got a good list here, very positive, so anybody who gets on my case about being a negative Nancy or something, it will be very difficult to be a negative Nancy on this one, because we're talking about games that have hooked us from day one, play one, first 5 minutes, first 20 minutes, first gameplay we ever had, whatever you want to call it. We're basically saying that at some point during the first game of it, we knew that this was a game we were going to love, and it stayed that way and possibly kept getting better. So some of you loyal viewers might recognize that we got a returning guest on this time. We got Jeff from Boardroom Gamer.
Hey.
Over there. Some people might remember that last year we did a list of top 10 hidden gems by Jeff's request, which actually turned, I have to say, did turn out to actually be one of the more popular collaborations, actually. So, it actually was quite a good video to do, not to mention a lot of people had lots to comment on with regards to that one. So, thanks everybody for joining us. Of course, all the the usual folk who I swear just have they either have very little to do or it's easy to put it on in the background with whatever chaos is going on around their own homes. That's all I can say. Although board then play, somebody I haven't seen for a while. So yep, all good. Thanks for tuning in. But as always, when it comes to this, as much as there are some big creators I watch, at the end of the day, you want small creators, which is why you got to give Boardroom Gamer a break and get some subscribers on his list for hashtag support small creators. Jeff, in case nobody watched the last one, tell them what you do.
So a lot of times I do solo play, and then sometimes I'll do a two-player Tuesday with a buddy of mine here local. We'll do a live stream on Twitch, and then when I get the time, chop it up, edit it so that there's not a lot of time between turns. I do a few different how to play videos where it's not so much how to play the game, but it's how to play specific characters within a game, if that makes sense, like player powers, things like that. But that's pretty much what I do.
So in essence, like your main content's on Twitch as opposed to YouTube.
Right. I'll then edit it for YouTube so that's a little bit shorter. Yeah.
Can't see a thing. One thing I might suggest, actually, maybe put your Twitch link on your description on your page, because if that's where your main content is, I think people need to be able to go two ways about it. So that might be worth doing. But by all means, have a search for him on Twitch. But you can always get the highlights, the edited highlights on YouTube, of which there's plenty there, including some big names and even some slightly more weird names as well. There's a couple of games here I'm not even sure I recognize myself, but.
I did that to you.
I hear about their boss
too.
Well, I say that's why it kind of worked with that. But as always, when you want the real creators on YouTube and that, you go to the small ones, which is why you got to go for Boardroom Gamer as well. So yeah, this one was a Patreon list where basically anybody on a certain tier on my Patreons gets to vote on a bunch of ideas that I've got for top 10s, as well as me putting a few suggestions of my own, and they tend to sort of rank which ones they want done sort of first, and which ones later. This one was slightly further down. We got one next week, which is a bit more popular. We'll get to that at the end of the show, but I always put it down to the guest to basically choose from the list to say, okay, which one sounds pretty good for you, and this is Jeff's request from the list I gave to say hooked from day one. So why does this one resonate with you?
It's funny, like you talk about love at first sight, right? That kind of thing. Some of these games on my list were even hooked from demo one, not even a full game. Like some of these did not even take, it was just a couple of turns. I see it and I'm like, oh my gosh, I see where this game's going. And I see like the deeper the strategy could be, the more I learn the game, enjoy the game, etc. Like even from the first couple of rounds, I think that's a lot of fun. I think it's one of the best parts about board gaming, actually.
That is kind of the way, because I have to admit, it doesn't happen as often now as it used to. There was that kid in the candy store phase when I started properly getting into this YouTube thing, and all the games are new, mechanics are different, and board gaming, in my opinion, like being at its peak around, several years back in that. And suddenly you're seeing all these new games and they are hooking you from day one, because it's all like, ooh, brand new. I got to admit, as we get into recent years, you start sometimes thinking this up, right, I've seen this before, and a lot more effort is required in order to say, right now, this is the one that's going to hook you. And to be honest, some of them tend to be older games that I've only just got to round to discovering. So it's not even like, oh, here's a brand new 2022 game that's hooked me now. It's more of a case of, in 2021 or something, I have now finally played a game from 3-4 years ago. It's like finally been shown to me, and now I'm like, oh, if only I'd seen this back then.
Yeah, I'm looking at these, and you're right. There's not a single one from 2020 anything.
I've got one. I think I got one. Actually, ooh, was that 2020? Maybe. Or maybe I got a couple, but maybe 3. I don't know. Some may be recent ones, but I mean, as I say, the time's not a massive deal as long as it meets the definition. So we've already mentioned it's essentially hooked from day one. So this the first play, in your case, you said the demo even. That's different. I wonder if well, actually, no, that counts for me, because some of these were Essen demos where I played it at Essen and it's like, oh yeah, I'm definitely grabbing this. But, you know, always, in case sort of people are thinking, well, hang on a minute, don't you review games and you got to play it lots of times? Well, we still do. The game still gets given the beans when we're playing the games. It's not like, oh, right, I get hooked from day one and then that's my verdict for the game. No, it's just the fact that it tugs at me at that point, and then in subsequent games, it remains consistent like that.
Yes.
It's not, some games I end up loving, that can be my favorites of all time, but weren't necessarily initially, big hitters would be like maybe the first Teach was bad, or I had to play it a few times before it kind of like, oh, now I'm kind of getting it. Now it's clicked. Sometimes it's just more of an impulse. It's, as you say, it's a love at first sight. It's just that little feeling you get. You see that cracking woman across the street. You don't know if it's like if she's the one for you, but you instantly fall in love with her at that point. It's that kind of feeling. Nobody can put like logic to that.
Sure.
That was probably a weird analogy, but never mind.
It was a great analogy. Are you kidding me?
It's not talking from my experience anyway.
I did. We mentioned, before we went live, I did have a couple of honorable mentions. Did you want those up front, or do we want those on the back end?
Let's put those on the back end. So it keeps people guessing, because I got a couple like that. So I mean, I didn't put many on the list when I was making it like down to 10. I sort of realized, right, I've put down some belters here, and it's hard enough just to get 10 out of these. So if I was to add another 20 more to the list, it would have just got ridiculous. But yeah, obviously these are pretty favorite games, but I think there's going to be a few. I don't know, I think there's a good mix of shockers and like unexpected ones. And like I say, in Jeff's case, I got no idea.
You think?
No. Not after what you told me. Yeah, first line he tells me before we get on is like, oh, I had a bunch of ex-publisher games. I'm not going to spoil, but he's like, oh, a bunch of these made the short list. And then as soon as I heard that, I thought, we're gonna have very different lists.
You know what?
But
I think we might share one.
It'd be interesting. I mean, there's one or two that I'd like to think we could share, but there's definitely,
because you have talked about this particular game that's on my list quite a few times on your channel.
That'll be interesting, don't I say?
And it wasn't to say that you can't stand the game.
No, unlike the couple of expeditions you did, although people are already making a few predictions there. Kabuki's already coming with our pick for Spirit Island. It's like, well, we'll wait and see on that one. Ticket to Ride, Sentinels. Lydian's not too what's the word? Convinced by Spirit Island. Well, we'll have to see. But
all right.
Without further ado, right? Oh, it feels good to be doing a collaboration one again. Right, let's get started. Guests go first, as always.
That's me?
Well, who else? You're the only guest here.
All right, so here goes. At first, the first games that came to mind, I love deck builders. So deck builders started to fill up my list. I had to put the brakes on and say, okay, I can't just pump this full of deck builders. But I do love most of them. There are some I don't
can be cool.
care for. But this one was easy. When we talked about the list, I'm like, well, this is the first one. And that is Ascension by Gary Games. And I say Gary Games because it was Justin Gary that gave me the demo at a Gamma convention before the game came out. And we sat down and played it, immediately fell in love with it. Prior to Ascension, deck builders were pretty much limited to Dominion. And my biggest hang up, which I liked Dominion a lot, the biggest hang up was the whole setup and takedown, right? You had to find these separate piles of cards and then lay them out. And then when you're done with the game, you had to sort out your deck and spread them apart and re-put the piles back in. I just found that very tedious. So Justin Gary sits down with us. He's like, here's the cards. Here's your starter deck. You ready to play? Like, it was that fast. And that immediate, like, wow, okay, yeah, let's play. And then he showed me the gameplay. You had, instead of cards that had victory points that were worthless in your deck, like in Dominion, you can actually buy cards during the game that also had victory points. Remember, this all sounds like, yeah, every game does that. Yeah, now it does. But that was, in my opinion, what really launched deck builders into kind of a bigger sphere, if that makes sense. So dead cards were gone. There was a second currency, for lack of a better word. You had these runes that you could use to purchase heroes, and then you had the combat icon, which you used to defeat the monsters. But the defeated monsters didn't necessarily go into your deck. They gave you a one-shot bonus. I mean, just, man, I loved everything about Ascension. It was great.
So was this like kind of like a first deck builder in a sense? Because I mean, Ascension's a decent enough game, but certainly a product of. Well, actually, I was going to say it's time, but technically, I think it was 2010, so it's actually not that old. It looks
12
old.
years.
Yeah, but I mean, I know I just did a list on pre-2010 games, but it's not like I go thinking like, oh yeah, but like the main thing that makes you think it's older than 2010 is that people give Dominion shtick for the artwork. Also, like here, you could actually see the notepad lines on some of these cards. It's like that bad. Well, I know it's got better as the expansions have come out.
That was a design choice, actually. During the first Ascension, what's it called? Ascension, Rise of the something, Chronicle of Godslayer. There it is. That was part of the art style. It wasn't actually the drawing lines. It was done in old school Magic the Gathering feel on purpose. So it's a very, very interesting way that they design the cards.
With that, fair enough. I mean, yeah, as I say, the game's like a decent one. I haven't played it in ages. I know it's on the app, but if this was one of your sort of intros to deck building, then it would have been a particular things like that. Just saying to that, Mykola, best of luck to you. Hopefully you'll get to see this soon and stay safe. All right, Ascension, cool. Who is there? I have to admit, it's been a while since I've played it, so I'm not entirely certain what I think of it now. Yeah, so I wouldn't even know where to start. Even then, I've got so many deck builders. I think it's like because I've got Dominion, it's kind of the way I'm going. Right, my number 10. Although, as much as I look at my number 10, as much as I'm looking at it thinking, ooh, artwork and notepad lines or something, I can't exactly talk on this one because the artwork on this particular game is, well, not exactly great either. And that is a little hard game called Innovation.
Oh, yeah.
This one, I think I played it in like its first edition at first, and then played the yellow version, which I think that was the one I had in my collection for longer, and it certainly was an upgrade on the artwork. But then, of course, this particular one, in fact, I'm not even going to show the third edition, because frankly, it just looks alright. I admit, Innovation's not a looker. This is the nicer looking one, but it doesn't have all the expansions, so you kind of have to, and it had a horrible case. But with this game, this one just sold it to me because I thought like, okay, what am I supposed to do with all these cards and tech and that? But the way that all those effects, you kind of had to play this game very tactically. You cannot play this game strategically. It's physically impossible because the cards that you get, you don't know what you're going to get. It's about looking at what you have or what you've got in your hand and making the best of it. Like my opponent's doing this. Well, hang on. If I combine this card with this one, if I take paper and combine it with democracy, this can do this thing. I've only got a level 2 yellow card. I really need to upgrade it. Oh, I can get this one. It triggered a lot of like really cool, like puzzly thoughts, whilst also going up against preferably one opponent. If you play this with too many, it's a bit of a nightmare, shall we say? But having the extra win conditions was a good thing. It's not many games. This was quite an early one in my career. Not a lot of games I played had multiple end conditions. So with this one, it's like, okay, so I can win by an auto condition, or I can get the 6 dominations as I'm meant to do, or I could draw out the final age and then we count up points. But this one I have had some great stories of like how I've managed to like come from behind, like, oh, I'm like losing 5 dominations to 1. How am I going to win this game? And then somehow pulling a fast one to win by a different endgame condition. Is like you could really like pull off some great combos here. But for those like I'm surprised, James, you haven't heard of this one, but go check it out on Board Game Arena. Board Game Arena has got it on there. It's a very easy setup. It's definitely one to, give a try. But yes, I would totally understand if people weren't exactly fans of this one. It's definitely kind of like, it will either grab you or it won't.
Right.
You're a Tom Vassal or you're a Zigas Era in this regard, because they got very like polar opposite opinions on this one. But yeah, it's really something to me, that. Not one you've tried?
Nope, it is not. I've seen it. I've not seen it in action, but I've seen it at a local game store here. I just never pulled the trigger on picking that one up.
What about I'm trying to think of a couple of similar ones like Motanai? Is it called the Glory? It's similar. I'm not sure, but those kind of games.
Which
Motanai
one?
would be. I'm not sure if Call the Glory is similar. I might be wrong, but there was another game called Motanai that's kind of similar. Like it's a bunch of crazy effects on cards, and like depending on how you, I think it was Motanai. No? Yeah, so I think it was this one.
You maintain the same size hand the whole game. Is that the deal?
No, you can draw. Well, that's the Motanai one. But if you haven't heard of that, it's not going to help as much. But it's more that you start off with a couple of cards. You play one with one in your hand, and then it's a case of you have a tableau of cards in 5 different colors to represent different types of technologies. How much you have in your hand is down to how many cards you want to draw. There's no max, but then there's effects that force your opponent to do stuff if you've got more of a symbol than they have, or there's co-op ones where, I get to do something, but if the opponent's matching me on symbols, then they get to do it as well. Do I want to trigger it if they're going to do it? It's like little puzzly aspects like that. But I think, Glory to Roll.
So the symbols.
Was the one there.
Glory to Rome. Yes, I have played Glory to Rome.
Yeah, that's that one I don't think I've played, but it's this whole thing of multi-use cards kind of being called Shudik shtick, which, to be fair, I love multi-use cards, so I do enjoy playing a lot of these games.
Red Rising does that.
In a sense,
to a degree, right?
To a degree, that one gets a little fiddly when you play it. I prefer Fantasy Realms that came before it. It was just like a little bit simpler. Red Rising, I suppose, took it to another level. Plus, I have no knowledge of those books, so it didn't help me either.
Same.
All right, moved on to 9s. Okay, no.
All right. So, I have a game by Lillibud.
I think it's pronounced Libelud, but
Libelud. Yeah. Well, there's a B before the L. Okay. Libelud. This is, the artwork is phenomenal. So we've gone from so-so or negligent artwork to...
I was going to say, they haven't made a bad-looking game.
the extreme other end. And just the design, the artwork, the components, everything about the game. Seasons. I absolutely love Seasons. Let's just start with components. Chunky dice. I love big chunky dice. Right?
No, I can't resist.
Yeah.
You haven't truly loved Seasons unless you've been a joyful playgirl with the dice. That's the
it's so good. And because what's it? The Dinosaur Island, they did big chunky dice, right? With the amber looking DNA. They have that big chunky dice. I just love that, right? You really, really feel like you're rolling something. Again, beautiful artwork. I love the way the clock works with the game clock, for lack of a better word, the game clock with the leftover die sets how fast that thing travels along. So when you're drafting dice, you can really force the game to end sooner, or you can try to slow it down because you're not in the lead yet. I think drafting 9 cards up front, but then setting them aside 3 cards at a time, trying to forecast how you're going to build your tableau 3 rounds in advance, right? You only get 3 cards phase 1, 3 cards phase 2, 3 cards phase 3, and you have to really figure out which cards am I really going to get in play, which are going to benefit me in rounds 1, 2, or 3, that kind of stuff. There's a lot of, just look at that art. That art is incredible.
It's not even necessarily the 9 cards, because otherwise some people compare it to Res Arcana, which I never really liked as much. Yeah. But you can get more cards in this. It's not it's only the 9
draft, right? So
yeah, the initial draft.
Not only are you drafting that, but then you have to separate them into the turns in which you think you're going to play them. but before you even know whether or not you'll be able to, it's so cool. I just love all of that. And then you're just like all these sacrifice abilities and take that abilities where opponents have to pay you to play their cards. Just so much. And they had a couple of good expansions too. I felt like one of them was a little overdone, but for the most part, they're really, really good. It's a beautiful game. Beautiful.
I think
it is literally. If somebody would say, "What's your favorite game?" It would be Seasons is right up there.
Yeah, this was an honorable mention because I did consider this one because I do not recall having to take time to build up to this one. I think as soon as I got to handle those chunky dice, I was kind of sold. But the cards themselves, I love using that Hourglass of Time one here on this picture. Every time the season changes, get energy. It's like that's always a fun one. But you get those cards in the draft and it's trying to think, right, that could combo with this one, this could combo with that, and it's good enough in the base, but I agree, you throw in the expansions and get those extra cards in there to mix things up a bit and play on what they call Archmage mode, so you don't have predetermined hands, then it does sing. Although, I'm with you as well, I don't use any of the expansion mechanics from either of the two expansions. Yeah, I don't use the Destiny die, I don't use the starting, rule change things, and I certainly don't use that Moon die thing. All of those bits I leave out. I literally just take the cards from those expansions and shove it into the deck, because that's really the best thing. You don't need extra mechanics to complicate things, and you don't have to... It's kind of weird that the new mechanics that they throw in don't key off the cards, so it's not like I've got to go and find 5 cards and take them out of the deck permanently, which is handy, but... Yeah, it's definitely a good one. And certainly for those who have not tried Seasons, again, Board Game Arena. It's definitely the way to go.
Play that game. Oh, it's so good.
It is good. And as I say, but if you play it on Board Game Arena, you will not get to hold those lovely chunky dice, which annoyingly I can't play for on a channel because I keep thinking it's there. I moved my Libellude stuff down to downstairs shelf. So yeah, I'm not going all the way downstairs to get the dice. If I'd known it was going to be on your list, I'd have done it in advance.
Although they're almost worth it.
It's almost... It's always worth the trip, yes, but I don't want to delay the stream even more for like 5 minutes for people just to watch a blank screen while I'm going to collect dice.
He's grabbing dice.
Especially if they don't know the in-joke with me playing with the dice. Okie doke, right, number 9. I know we talked about not necessarily doing the most recent game ever, but this one is a 2020 release, and I will still maintain out of 2 particular games which seem to get compared way too often in this case, even though they're not that similar, this is the one that comes out on top. First game I played was a Paul Grogan demo, a 2-player, hadn't barely even heard of the game before, so I think the fact that I went into this kind of blind, other than just seeing a cool looking cover, kind of helped. But Lost Ruins of Arnak sold me on that first 2-player game from Paul Grogan. I played it with just the base game at the time because I think it was like a new release, and I don't know why I need to look at those sort of things. There we go, the back of the box is good. But this great sort of Indiana Jones Tomb Raider-esque themed game, which I love those 2 franchises anyway, although, well, Indiana Jones as a film, Tomb Raider as a video game specifically, but those things gel so well here, and again, we talk about great artwork. Everything in this game looks absolutely beautiful. I could have that board as a poster on my wall if you took off all the outline spaces. It's that good. The thing that I remember from that game just selling me was the fact that each of the 2 of us doing it were doing very different things. So the opponent I had was going for a lot more the research track and trying to level up that, whereas I didn't really pay that much attention. I went more on a spending spree and just ended up buying lots of cards. Both, actually. Yeah, I just went mad on cards. But whereas my opponent was just coincidentally buying things like a machete or backpack, useful things you would take on an exploration, I was essentially doing my worst, world's first useless explorer. The Jeremy Clarkson of, exploring, where I basically go, right, I know, and I've got, I got a boat, got a nice car, a gold pocket watch, could do with that, a parrot. So what we need is that all the useless things that I could ask for. And they worked great for the game, but if I was to go exploring with any of the stuff I was buying, fishing rod. Yeah, can't forget that.
Did you look like Jim Carrey coming out of the convenience store with the cowboy hat and the Slim Jims, and you only had a couple bucks?
Yeah, that's not too dissimilar, actually. Yeah, I would actually go with that. But yeah, I from that game, it's like, right, I want a copy of
Yeah.
this game, and then every time I've played it, I still really adore this one.
Short list.
I the great thing with this one is when I mentioned like two games getting compared. David's already brought it up here. They keep comparing it to Dune Imperium, and it's like just because they're both worker placement / deck builders, but honestly, they're different enough that you can have both. And as much as I initially liked Dune Imperium and now I've kind of burnt out on it rather quickly, it's like this one has still stood the test of time. I just wish they stopped getting compared all the time. It's like just like one or the other, have both. You can like both. It's one of those things where I just think I don't see how they're similar enough.
Interesting. Yeah, I love Lost Ruins of Arnak. This was definitely on my short list. And again, if I didn't have so many deck builders, this would have made it.
So, well, I mean, even then, they say that, oh, this is another deck building game. It's like, it's a small element of this game, really. I mean, yes, you're buying cards, but you've only got 5 rounds, and it's easy to kind of get the cards out your deck. And even then, the items that you buy go on top of the discard pile that you have for the next turn, so you're going to get them. It's not like you have to sort of worry too much about whether they'll turn up multiple times. It's most of the time you should buy a card expecting only to see it once or twice ever in the game.
Yeah, depending on the round, it's definitely once or twice if you're lucky.
But it's but certainly I've not played the expansion to Dune Imperium, although a friend of mine definitely wants me to try it, so I will, when he shows me it. As for this one, I have got the expansion for this one, the Leaders and Expedition one, and it just makes it better, really. It's like, great, now I have special powers and a unique player board and more cards. What more do I want? Just give me a lot of variety in player powers, and you've pretty much sold me on an expansion, frankly.
Just picked that up. I haven't opened the shrink wrap on it yet, though. Like just maybe a week or so ago, I just picked that expansion up.
What, the Leaders and Leaders one? Definitely a good one. It's the only minor nitpick I have with it is that teaching it to brand new players might be quite tricky. I think that there's quite a bit going on in the game enough to sort of go, right, you also have your unique player board with this particular thing. It's like, you might be useful to just give them a base set game one first and then throw it in, because once you throw it in and people know what they're doing, you probably won't ever take it out again. That's how good it is. Alrighty, on the 8s.
Okay, looking at my list here, seeing, because these aren't in any particular order, they just happen to have 10 different ones. Because we clearly love all these games. We were hooked from day one, right?
Yep.
So this one is a game by Pandasaurus, and it was initially for the artwork.
We haven't just mentioned it, have we?
No. We mentioned Pandasaurus, but not this game. So the artwork was a big factor in it for me. And then when I read what you're doing in Wasteland Express Delivery Service.
Okay. Alrighty.
Yep. You're talking about Borderlands meets FedEx.
Mad Max.
UPS, right? Like, and in some apocalyptic future where there's a lack of food, water, and ammunition. It's funny how the end of the world always boils down to those 3 things.
Well, generally. It's what sells.
Yeah, Wasteland Express Delivery Service, man, it's so good. Let's see. First of all, the modular board. So that keeps it fresh. You're dealing out these octagonal or hexagonal, I think they're octagonal though, octagonal tiles. And then the space in between the tiles becomes the pit stops, for lack of a better word. They're actually your delivery. All right, that's a good picture there to showcase it. So the octagon is actually the wasteland, but the square in between all of those is where you're making deliveries or picking up. So right there, that guy could, pick up some ammunition for whatever the market value is, which is awesome. The market board, manipulating that's one of the major things I love about the game. He's buying those ammunition to take it to some other location to drop it off, to either sell it for a higher market value or drop it off for a mission card that they have that we don't know they have. So they have these secret mission cards. You're trying to complete 3 of them. If you complete 3 of them before anybody else completes 3 of them, you win the game, plain and simple. One of the things I like about it is there's a low amount of player versus player interactivity. Like, I don't take my car and go shoot your car. The best or the worst thing I can do is take that neutral enemy and move him one space towards you, and then they'll shoot you.
Yeah, or like
Whatever.
you delivered the thing, you messed up the market in a sense. I mean, kind of like most pick up and
Yeah,
deliver
messing
games,
up
I
the
guess.
market,
Yeah.
but that's so I would consider that their fault for not selling sooner.
I can work
Right?
there. Yeah, I like this one. I grabbed it a while back. I don't think I reviewed it. I think I just tried it,
Yeah.
and I remember enjoying it generally. Like the theme sort of under me, pick up and deliver. I'm on and off with and that. My only problem was its length. That was the one thing that I think stopped me because you're talking a good 3 hour game here, like potentially when you've got like a
Depending
lot
on
of the
player count.
players.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like 2.5 to 3, so it can go on quite a long time. I thought like, I need this to be like sort of half the length, and then I've got like an absolute belter because it definitely is one for your Mad Max fan.
Yes,
It's like
it's so
nothing.
good. I love so much about that. The mod shop, kitting out your own car or your truck or whatever, making it really yours, right? Yeah,
Well,
that's one of my favorite parts is making the vehicle your own. Like, do you want two trailers? Do you want more guns? Do you want more shields? That's like it's like being able to craft your own player power.
Exactly, and it just works nicely
Yeah.
there. I know somebody said before we were going to say Dinosaur Island. We just mentioned that a minute ago, and that was why I was clarifying at the start, saying like we've just mentioned Dinosaur Island. You're not talking about this one, are you? It's like nope.
Nope. Oh, definitely a different game than that. But this is also probably my top 5 games of all time as well. I
Oh
just love
wow.
that game.
I have to admit to say, I mean, sometimes you can say like your top 10 games of all time could literally just be your top 10 list, potentially, but certainly in my case, not necessarily on that front. Alrighty, so number 8, right, we're going on to a straight up Euro. It still has a decent amount of theme, mainly just because of the sheer amount of options you have, and certainly Uri Rosenberg's shtick is to give you as many options as you can. I like a good sandbox game though, so basically giving me a game where you've taught me the rules, and then you just basically say, right, Luke, do what you like. Okay, sweet. I'm usually sold as soon as that happens. So compared to a lot of the other ones like Caverna and a few of the other farming games, and that Fields of Var was the one where I didn't need any extra games to find out. I think even Caverna, I was like, oh, I prefer this to Agricola, but let me play it a couple more times and see, because I was trying to make the comparison. This
Right.
one didn't take any extra comparisons. It's like, no, I'm in it. And Kabuki's mentioned Western Legends. That one took a bit more time. There was quite a bit going on in that one. It's a long, quite a lengthy affair at times, but I mean, that's in the collection near the room, so I still love that one. Same reason. I don't even like cowboys westerns that much. It's just a sandbox game at the end of the day. But
Right.
this one here just basically say, right, how many options do you want? Here's your 2-player boards. Here's your farm. Here's your like vehicle center. Here's where you can trade. Here's your like expedition thing you can go on. Here's all your resources. Here's all the buildings. Here's your tools. Here's your worker placement spots. Here's your
Wow.
animals. Here's your oh god, you name it, you can do it in this game. And I played it the other week because I wanted to compare it to a few other solo games when I was doing the list with Mark Dainty, and it didn't take me that long, surprisingly, to sort of gear myself back up on the rules again. There were a few little elements, but I just loved it. I've had that where I sat down on Tabletop Simulator to play it. It's like, where do I even start? It's like, what
Yeah.
do I want to do this game? And I try to remember, I think I went mad on farming wheat and baking bread in like really good ovens and doing up the tools and stuff. It's like, but next game I can decide, you know what, I'm going to trade tea and make nothing but like woolly jackets for local farmers and stuff. It's just so many options you get in this, and it can be overwhelming to anybody with an AP problem. But for me,
I
it's just
bet.
a case of, right, I'm going to pick this route and go with it and see what happens. So
What's
it's like
the
those.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
What's that?
Oh, I was just going to ask you a question about like because I've not played this one. I played almost all of Uwe Rosenberg's games, but not this one. What's the like
Right.
the point mechanic? Like, are you selling things? Is that how you get points or?
Well, it's basically a point salad. So for those who don't know that, it's basically like any little thing you do gets you points. So,
Okay.
your tools, if you level those up, they're worth points. The buildings are worth points. If you trade to your local farmers, then this track levels up, that's worth points. You could stockpile a ton of resources for points, and pretty much every token in the game,
Wow.
whether it's a vehicle or woolly jacket or even just your basic upgraded like timber and bricks or whatever, are worth certain points. So it is a point salad. So kind of like everything you do is
Okay.
getting your points. It's just a case of, are you doing it efficiently enough? So cheers, Gabugi, for filling in the blanks on the sandbox scene. Sandbox is essentially kind of like choose what you want to do. Like, it gives you a plethora of options, but then you get to do whatever you want. So I was literally about to use the exact same definition as Kabuki did. It's an open world video game.
Mm-hmm.
So you play like Zelda Breath of the Wild, for example, and you start off in that, and you can go pretty much wherever you like. You could follow where it hints you want to go, but you might decide, I'm going to head east and see what's over there, for better or worse. And so this is a similar thing. It's like, right, it gives you all these options. You go, well, I fancy making a bunch of coats and selling them off. Then go do that then. I'm not stopping you. You go do that. I'm going to farm sheep. It's entirely down to you, and I like these options. Would I say that Paladins is a sandbox game? I don't think that's a sandbox, but that fits the definition of a point salad, because pretty much like anything you choose to do in there gets you points. So I wouldn't say that. I certainly wouldn't say it's a sandbox, but it is just a sandbox point salad. I mean, there's all these definitions. That's why I did that glossary series, because you got to explain a few of these sometimes. We do tend to waffle off these terms far too much as gamers without sort of considering whether anybody actually understands what we're talking about. But yeah.
Is there any player interaction in Fields of Arle? Like if you make wheat, can I buy it from you and you get is there any?
That's one issue with it, is that you don't get a lot of player interaction. It is mostly a solitaire, but it is worker placement in the sense that the tools have spaces for, like in most of his other games. So if I go here, I can use this tool to get wood. If I go here, I can do that stuff. And so you got workers, so you got limited spaces. So somebody might take the space you want, and
that's about
things
the extent
like that.
of the interaction.
Yeah, that's the thing. Okay. But then this game was only a 2-player game max. You had to get an expansion to make it 3-player, and I 95% play the solo.
Okay.
You play it solo. Here's your board. Get as many points as you can. They say there's a target. I honestly couldn't care less about a target. I just basically go, did I have fun? And I'm good. So
that's my target.
Exactly. What more do you want in the game? Speaking of which, on 7s.
All right.
You got one that's more fun?
You brought him up, so I might as well put my Uwe Rosenberg game in. I thought we were going to have one. When I told you we'd have one crossover. I still feel that. And then when you started talking about Uwe Rosenberg, lots of choices, and you love an Uwe Rosenberg game. It started with an F.
Most of his stuff I do like. Started with an F. Oh, you're talking about the other monstrosity, aren't you? Feast?
Yeah, the other big paperweight. So, Feast for Odin. This was my first introduction to really, really big games. The price tag kept me away for quite a while. And I said, you know what?
Yeah.
I just want to experience this big giant box game thing, right? And I did. And I'll tell you exactly how Feast for Odin and I fell in love. How would you like that story? Bought the game, opened it up, and started looking through this massive pile of punch outs and the trays that I had to sort all the little tiny things in. And I was immediately overwhelmed and scared.
It is the same, yeah.
So those of you that have gone through that, are about to go through that, it's normal. Or we're also not normal. So I get it all laid out, getting ready to play, and I convinced my wife to play. I said, do me a favor, just play one round with me, because I'm not sure I'm getting the game right. Like, I just want to be sure. So she did, sat down and joined me for a round. We finished that entire game, loved it. Like,
including the wife.
Awesome. Yeah, it was completely. And funny enough, I was as shocked like as she was. She was actually mad that she enjoyed it, because she kind of didn't really want to play it.
It's like, I can't have a go at you now.
Right. So, but when we played it, we absolutely loved it. There were some, things, did that wrong, which is, I would think, typical of a game of this size, but we didn't love it any less. It was fantastic. I immediately wanted to play again with my gaming group. I was like, guys, I got the game. I figured it out. Let's play. Like, that was the enthusiasm which I had after that very first play. I mean, what else is there to say about this? Like, you talked about having so many choices, right? I don't know if this is the first game that required, for worker placement, that required more workers to do a bigger version of the same thing. I don't know if that was.
Yeah,
it felt like.
Well, that was the kind of deal with it. I mean, this one's still in the collection, although I haven't played it in
Yeah,
ages because it's a
I
bit of a
loved that about it.
it's a bit of a rules behemoth in a sense of trying to like, oh great, how does this all work again? All these like and I hate teaching this game. Like teaching 60 different spaces is an absolute nightmare. But I do enjoy it. I like the polyomino stuff. I like
Yep.
again, it's quite sandboxy. You know, I can kind of decide what I want to do. The one nitpick I do have with it is that well, two in that. One, I wish the occupation cards were a bit better.
Okay.
The like those ones you can get because you can get them and you can play a bunch of them, but they just don't seem that impactful. Like I've yet to do well by focusing a lot on those, or
Okay.
or to say my strategy did well because of X occupation card. They're kind of like, oh,
Oh,
I got
okay.
one or two nice ones here, I might as well play it. But there is a huge deck of them, so I don't know if that's a thing. Perhaps it's a case that you need to play with the most advanced ones and not any of the not any of the
Oh,
basic
okay.
ones. That might
Yeah,
be
I
it.
would recommend that for you then.
Yeah,
They
because I
get
mean,
better.
I've mixed and matched, so it depends who I'm playing with. But yeah, I pretty much would just use them. The only other thing is that you've got to get the expansion for this. Norwegians, all
Yeah.
of that, because I didn't like that certain things like what was it? Not I was about to say exploitation. What's the one? Emigration. Yeah, that ended up being like a really easy way to do well, and I never saw anybody win with animals in the first base game.
Right.
But then you throw Norwegians in, and suddenly it balanced things a lot better. Like the animals got buffed up so much more. They didn't become overpowered, which was what I was afraid would happen, but they became a competent thing. I have won the game doing animals in one shape or form. So
Yep.
it was good that it kind of fixed some of those nitpicks I have. I think it was just a bit easier to get the rules back into my head. I'd bring this out more often, especially again. I would play this more solo than multiplayer.
Right.
Because you don't really, apart from blocking spaces, that's about the only multiplayer interaction you have, and the game does go on quite a while if you were to have all four of you in there. But play it solo. In fact, the solo mode's pretty good. You basically just have, I think this might even be a solo game, where basically the opponent sort of blocks off certain spaces and
Hmm.
that you've used, so you've got to diversify a bit. But yeah,
Yeah. That's
it's expensive. It's a lot of stuff in there, and as Jeff has said, you will have a bit of a heart attack to set the thing up and
sorting.
unbox it. Yeah, it is a bit of a mission for that, but it's still a solid one. I don't know where did I put it on my top 100. It's somewhere in the lower 50. It's definitely in there
Yeah.
somewhere though,
When you
because I
when you
do
said
enjoy it.
when you said sandbox and Uwe and you have all these choices, go any which way you want, I'm thinking, yeah, you could be a fisherman, you could be a hunter, you can create artifacts, you can go hunt these, you can immigrate,
Yeah.
like all that stuff. But the skills are all right. What do you got?
As that, well, as they, I mean, it kind of works with each other. The one thing that I do find funny with this one, though, is this whole concept. I mean, I get that Uri wasn't really caring too much about the theme in this with like polyomino line and that, but this whole food mechanic thing just makes me laugh. The idea that you're trying to feed all the Vikings, and I get the idea that they would want different stuff, variety and that. But this idea that, if I lay the peas horizontally instead of vertically or something, it feeds them more. It's like, what?
Feeds more people.
It's like, what planet do you have to have come from in order to sort of come up with that as a mechanic? I was like, was there no other way to feed your people than do that? You could have just... In fact, yeah, I just realised I hadn't shown a picture. I'm talking about this sort of thing here. So,
Yep.
this is a good way to feed your people, but if I was to turn this vertically, I'd need something else to feed this person. So it's like, this radish doesn't this radish doesn't feed me if it's vertical. I'm sorry, I only eat horizontal bread. Thank you very much. It's like I say, it's not like a problem with the game. It's just a funny thing I have when I talk about like when people say, "Oh, it's a pretty thematic game in some places." Case in point, the food. What are you on about? I like. Oh, that's a great one. James likes to come up with a lot of dad jokes. This is actually a pretty solid one. Actually, the zombie version, Feast on Odin, actually works quite well.
Love it.
I'd play it. I'd definitely play it. All right, so Mass 7. Right, we're going away from Euros now. Although we're not going away from expensive games. This is just an expensive thematic game. This one came by not because of its theme, because Cthulhu, let's face it, had been done to death by that point, let alone now. But this is the first one that brought in a new way of like letting the game sort its own admin and bookkeeping out, mechanics. It brought in the first bit of app integration, which was my first play of Banshees of Madness, the second one. because I played the first one, wasn't a fan. I thought it was like it could break easily. It went on for a bit, and there was a lot to sort out. So there was a bit of skepticism going into this one at first, but I thought, okay, I'm up for technology. I'm not. I played XCOM before this. I knew that apps were kind of starting to become a thing. It's like, no, this could work. XCOM supports the game. It doesn't quite replace a ton of it. So this one basically saying, oh, we're gonna completely have 3/4 of the game be handled by the app while you do everything else. So I was a little bit but it sold me. Played the first mission. It took us a while because we were playing it multiplayer. I tend to play this solo now, but I think the app impressed me so much that I got hooked at that point. So it wasn't just a gimmick. The app works brilliantly. It gives you atmospheric music. It handles all the movement and things of the monsters. The combat, you're basically pressing menu bits, and it's giving you the story elements as well as handling the, did you hit the monster based on your die roll, that kind of thing. And it just does such a good job of bringing what is effectively a huge dungeon crawl to the table a lot easier, because it does look like a lot there. You don't have to get all this out of the box. But in terms of setting the thing up, if you've got it organized well, I mean, I've got it in custom cases at the moment, which helps, but still, even with this box, you pretty much just load up the app, go through a few pages of it, and you'll have, a couple of tiles on the board, and your starting investigator and a few cards. That's it, and you can get started. I wish that the minis weren't as rubbish as they are, but, these minis are kind of like Betrayal on House on the Hill levels of bad.
Yep.
They really are. But I basically do the Z Garcia method of playing this game, which is I don't use the minis, they're in a bag, and they never get taken out. Because all
you just
the
leave the cardboard token on the table?
Well, yeah, because the cardboard token has good artwork on it. The standees for the investigators are artwork, in Eldritch Horror and stuff like that, and they look great. But the token for a monster has all the stats you need for the actual monster, good artwork, and is just a tile on the table. So it's a lot easier to sort of see what's going on. It's a bit of a nightmare with this one, images wise, because everybody puts their little painted bits on. But actually, here's a good picture. Here we go. So, this base, this stupid black plastic base, you sort of slot the tile in there, which covers up all the artwork.
Yeah,
and then you put this really spindly
numbers,
thing.
right?
Yeah. But it covers up the artwork. And then you get this stupid little spindly thing that never stays on. I mean, you try and get these night gaunts to stay, or the little snake slithery things. You try and get them to stay on those bases. It is an absolute nightmare. Absolutely hate it. But, that aside, I just don't use the minis. Just accept that it's not a thing you need. But, yeah, I haven't even played every scenario in this yet, even though I've got, all the expansions. I just think it's probably one of the best Lovecraftian games there is at the moment.
You are not the first person, you're not the first 10th person to tell me that the app has changed their minds about Mansions of Madness. And I'm still stubborn because my first few plays of Mansions of Madness were so bad, of the original.
The original, yeah.
Yeah, just because of setup, time, just by the time you're playing, you felt like you already played something. And then, like you said, management, right? Managing all of that. Would you call it bookkeeping or whatever?
Yeah. Bookkeeping happened.
Incredibly daunting, and I said, I just don't want to go through that. It wasn't the fun didn't outweigh the work, right?
Yeah, I agree. The first one has a lot of that because you effectively have a DM running it, and if they do anything slightly wrong, the game breaks. But you don't need a DM in this one. Solo, fully co-op, I control 3 or 4 investigators at once, and it's not hard.
Awesome.
Because you've only got to deal with a few cards, and they're miniature. But everything is on that app, and it's an intuitive app. It's not like it's ridiculously confusing, but it's got tutorials on it as well to help you through your first game. And then after that, when you buy an expansion, you basically just mix everything together and load up the app. And it will mix up your entire collection to sort of vary the games a bit. But yeah, I wish more dungeon crawls did this.
It doesn't build scenarios for you, though, right? You have to load the scenario for it. You have to tell it which one you're about to play.
Yes, it jumbles up what kind of monsters and that you do, and it will change the layouts. Well, if you've got more monsters in the collection, then it will use them for multiple expansions. Okay. But the plot will be the same, but the layout and certain aspects will change. So the room layout will change. You won't necessarily be like, left is the kitchen. oh, it's not anymore. It's a study. It's like, oh, how? All right, okay. So where could the kitchen be then? But also, like for example, there's a great whodunit one I played where you're on an airship and murder happens and you're trying to figure out who it is. It could be one of 3 or 4 different people, and the reasoning may be, maybe like the same one as to who it could be, but it won't necessarily be the same person it was last time.
Oh,
So you can't game the system and go, oh, it was the blue dress lady last time, or it's going to be that one this
that's
time. It's
cool.
like, oh no, it's actually him. Oh, it's the other guy. So it stops you being able to simply game the system out. But then failing that, by the time you play the scenario again, you've probably forgotten who it was anyway.
Yeah,
And it
that's
works there.
cool.
But yeah, app technology won me over, and I'm sad. Well, I'm glad that apps are making more way into games, but I wish in this sort of in dungeon crawls they were used more, because honestly, they're not used as much in dungeon crawls at the moment, and they really need to be. Ah, well, let's move on to sixes.
Did you see those chunky dice there on your little sixes graphic? Seasons dice were in the background.
Oh yeah. So I almost was going to load it up again, but no, it is on there. Yep.
Yep, I recognize them from afar. All right, so our next one here. Let's see, which direction do I want to go? I think I'll go. You know what? I'm going to go co-op.
Well, you don't get to pick and choose. You're not making your list on the fly, are you?
No, I have 10 games. They're just not in any order. There's just 10 of them. So this was a co-op experience. Fell in love immediately because it was my first ever co-op experience, because I don't know that was or wasn't the first co-op game ever, but it sure was the biggest first co-op game, and that was Pandemic.
For me, it would have been Flashpoint Fire Rescues. They're around that similar time frame.
Right. So Pandemic, Z-Man Games, played that game, and wow, is it so cool, first of all, to showcase, wait, we all play together and try to beat the board game? That's very interesting and by itself. And then all of a sudden, we're not all just one thing on the board. Like, we are all very different things on the board. The soldier, the medic, the comms person that can send people places, or the pilot or whatever. Pandemic was just really, really good when that came out, and not winning, by the way, originally was a big deal, because I wanted to play it right again and try to beat it. So that's, when I say when it hooked you from game number one, definitely Pandemic, because it didn't beat it the first try. I immediately sat down and played it again. And I don't know that I beat it the second try either, but the fact that let's get back at it and try again tells you it wasn't like, oh, that was terrible, let's not play it again.
Yeah.
This was definitely way on the other side. I thought the way that the cities that got infected got shuffled back into the top half, so they were more prone to getting infected. The idea of that was kind of really interesting. Just so much about that. I think if I had one gripe, it was, and maybe it's just how badly we played. It's just when those outbreaks got out of control, they just get out of control.
Right? It's not the game's fault, though.
Yeah, I get that. So if you don't manage that, obviously properly, you're going to be fighting uphill battle that seems like you could never win eventually. But it was a lot of fun, and it made the list for that reason, that we immediately wanted to play it again. Then we went through Pandemic Legacy and loved every episode of that as well.
I was going to say, which one's your favorite at the moment? Because Pandemic never got to like the peak of, oh yeah, I love it. I've always found them good, and they've stayed good. They've just been consistent. Oh, they're good games, but I'll play them every now and again. I still hold on to Iberia, I think, down there as my pick. Like, oh, that's my favorite of the standalone Pandemics. I'll keep that one because it's a good gateway level, Pandemic to be able to bring out. Although I have played the 2 legacies, not the third one. I burnt out by that point.
Yeah.
I thought, like, trying to get the group together to finish it took a while. I was getting burnt out on campaign style games, taking forever. And I didn't like the theme and aesthetic of the third one. I mean, it was like Cold War and everything looked grey. So it's like I didn't want to step into that one. It could be amazing. I don't know. But just when you looked at how the first 2 looked and then that third one came by, I'm just like, bleh.
And that's season 0, right?
Yeah, season 0 is like grey the board game.
Yeah. So yeah, Pandemic. I liked Pandemic Cthulhu actually quite a bit. I don't know if you'd played that one.
Yeah, that one's good. Didn't like Rising Tide, but then that was half done by a splatter designer, so I suppose that's no shock. It doesn't gel with me anyway. trying to think what other pandemics there were. I mean, the problem is, Fall of Rome, I thought was meh. I kind of just liked Iberia. It's like, right, this is classic pandemic with a couple of extra bits thrown in and a nice
Sure.
aesthetic. So I
Yeah.
was cool with that. When they started for every time I see the word pandemic thrown on a spin-off game, I just roll my eyes now. Because I'm just saying, okay, you are just milking the cash cow now. Can you just give it a rest and try something else?
You
There's
mean
only so much you can vary it.
World of Warcraft?
Well, yeah, true. And that's yeah, that's that. I forgot about that one.
Wrath of the Lich King. I'm glad I could bring that up just to harass your brain.
I actually forgot that existed until you
I'm
mentioned
glad
it.
I
And
could
it's like,
help
oh,
you
great.
remember.
Great. But again, it's like I used to play World of Warcraft a lot. I have no interest in turning it into a pandemic game. It's like, come on, Matt Leacock, you have a talent. Design something else and put
Yep.
pandemic to bed. It will still sell for years on end. It's an evergreen. You don't need to keep pumping out a new pandemic game just to keep the brand name. I don't know. It's just like,
Yeah.
surely licensing's not a problem here. All right.
So
Well,
that's why that made the list. Co-op. Loved it.
yeah, and I can totally understand, actually. I mean, loads of people got hooked from day one on that, and friends of mine as well. All right, number 6, we're going to another Euro, and this is going back to what I think I briefly mentioned, where something new and unique has to happen. And when it comes to a worker placement game, it's very difficult to do that, because most worker placement games don't do a huge amount unique. I can think of a few of my favorites that do, and some of them just took a couple of games, 2 or 3 games to sort of go, yeah, I'm cool with this one. This one, on the other hand, does not get anywhere enough buzz. You talked about that top 10 list you wanted to do earlier about games that needed more love or something like that. This name needs more love because not enough people give Whistle Mountain any credit at all. It barely gets mentioned, despite having Luke Laurie's name on it and Scott Cabuto, both of which have done good stuff.
Yeah.
People sort of think, oh, is it like Whistle Stop? No, literally, it's the same publisher, designer, and there's whistles in it. That's your similarity. The end. Even though I like Whistle Stop, Whistle Stop's on the shelf as well. But this one I played thinking, okay, it's a worker placement. Surprise me. Where's the unique selling point? And then I got explained about this board in the middle where you put your ships around on the outside and you get your machines and you get your scaffolding and various upgrades. Okay, that's nothing new. This central board, though, because I don't know if you've played this one yet, probably not by the looks of it. Basically, you build the board that you're putting the ships on. So it starts off as a blank slate to begin with, and then what happens is with the scaffoldings, there's all the machine bits. It's a bit of a nightmare when you can't find the easiest of links. That's not too bad. Right, so that's the start of the game. It starts off as a blank slate. And what you do is that these scaffolding pieces, polyomino style, you place them down, they get your VP, but when you place your airship, which is the workers, on this grid next to the scaffoldings, you get the resources printed on them. So depending on how people build the initial scaffolding, gives you spaces on the board that are like better or worse than others. But then on those scaffoldings, you place these machines, small, medium, and large, that all have special effects. Get you resources, turn X into Y, do some really crazy thing. And when you put your airship on those, or next to them, you're triggering everything around it. So you could place a ship somewhere that gets you like a water from this scaffold, an iron from this scaffold, triggers this machine, triggers that machine. And so every game plays out differently, because the worker spaces are created by the players. So, yes, I'm not directly like screwing you over interaction-wise, but because every player contributes to this central board, there is some level of interaction in the sense. I built this machine here, somebody else comes and puts this one here, and I'm like, well, I can't go in that spot anymore because it's covered. But then, let's say that scaffolding bit here wasn't there now. I might have just built this machine and just created the ultimate worker placement spot where now everybody keeps trying to gun for it. It's that kind of thing. And you carry on, you get victory points as always. The flood level rises and makes machines
that's okay. So
obsolete.
those long water tiles, that's the flood level?
Yeah, so it's kind of like a timer for the end of the game. Once you build above this danger line, the flood level rises. You're trying to get your workers onto this like ladder for promotion and safety, but if it covers a machine, it renders it obsolete. So as well as the timer, it also changes which machines are in at what point during the game. But
it's really cool.
Yeah, it looks good. It's got the multitude of different upgrades you can have, player powers and that. But it's just the fact that this person here is, they've built it in a kind of tall tower along the right hand side here. People might build it really slowly all the way up. People might build it in such a jumbled order. No idea. But it just wowed me because I thought worker placement is normally fixed locations and you choose which one you go to. Here, the locations that are fixed around the edge of the board, everything else is down to the players.
I'll probably buy this one.
A few people already have, but certainly there was a video I did last year on the subject, like during lockdown when I still had like the stupid long beard and everything. But I went goo goo gaga like in the video side, like I was practically high on caffeine, at the time, and just raving about this because this is, I think it was in my top 10 of all time actually, on my top 100. I think it was because I can teach it easily. It's not complicated. But just the fact that every game I played, that central board is the game. And I love seeing it kind of evolve each time.
That's super cool. Yeah, I'm most likely going to buy this one.
Over that. It better not give you a barrage vibe, because for starters, this is a good game. And secondly, you're not screwing each other over right royally in this one. And the water doesn't trickle down, it actually rises up. So, and yes, I did have a beard. I tend to grow, a little bit, and then I shave it off, and then I let it grow back because I like to keep stubble. But yeah, when lockdown was happening, and there was no reason to go out, or there was also no way to get basic supplies, it was a case of I just thought, all right, fine. I just had massive, like, messy beard and a moustache or something. I mean, just check out. Well, you want proof? Go watch the Whistle Mountain review, and you'll see what I mean. It's not a pretty sight. I can tell you that much. So
that's the bearded Meeple.
Yeah. Well, broken in more ways than one, I think, with that one. But nah. All right, fives. Already an hour. We need to speed up. All right, let's see what we can do then.
No worries. Well, let's go right to Days of Wonder. Another one of my biggest publishers. I love pretty much everything they do for the quality they do. This one was bidding, outbidding, set collecting, pressing your luck, and the math of it all was Cargo Noir. Noir.
Okay, this is going to be interesting.
Yeah.
All right, you are aware that this is a game that is universally panned from Days of Wonder.
Do tell.
Don't say. I'll let you praise it first, but it's like there's very few people that talk praise about this, so you're going to be one of the first I've heard. So go. Wow.
Then it goes on my list of needs more love because, man, first of all, the math, right? When I can see that you can't outbid me, so I can pay the least amount of money for the spot that I want, and it's because you couldn't get it, I think that's great. The set collecting and then selling those sets to afford the thing that gives you more points before you buy that thing or before you can afford that thing to get victory points at the end of the game. Because early game, it's like a 1-for-1. If you spend 10, you get 10 victory points. But later game, you can spend $30 or whatever it is, 30 coins, to get something that's worth 35 points. Like there, the Principality only costs $81, but you get 90 points. The cargo ship costs $15 to get you 5 points. So you start to it starts to scale. You know what I mean? As you get more money. So there's that. They didn't have different player powers. If I had a gripe about it, it would be that. Everybody's the same, but I guess you're on equal footing in that regard. But man, the art was beautiful. It's just the quality of the components is beautiful. Speaking of components, when you make a bag for your game, this is for all you game publishers that are watching this. When you make a bag for your game, make sure your hand can fit in it with the components. This one you can.
Oh, God. Yeah, true. That does matter enough.
Whatever. So we don't have the time to go into how many games can't you fit your hand in bag, but anyhow.
City States. Yeah, the line I played last week.
Cargo Noir. I mean, you can expand. So those little slots with the question marks is your inventory. You can expand your inventory if you want, or you can expand your fleet if you want. Quite a bit of freedom of play. I really, really dig Cargo Noir. So remember, though, this list isn't what's the best game ever. This list is what caught you from day one.
Well, yeah, right? This one caught you from day one.
I was hooked. Yeah. I played it a lot.
Which is good. Yep. It's just when you said that, because I thought, like, what Days of Wonder game does auction a bid in that? And I thought the only one I could think of was this, but I don't hear people like go, oh, it's horrible, but they usually sort of go down the, oh, it's met, or it's like the dud of Days of Wonder. They'll talk praise over a lot of the other ones.
Yeah.
But for some reason, like this one, doesn't get as much. And to be fair, I mean, I've played it, and I thought it was average. I thought it was like it's fine.
Sure.
I played it. I didn't think it was horrible or anything like that. It just wasn't a keeper or something like that. But yeah, it just this one always usually gets talked in a bad way. So it's
This is why
actually
you
kind of
have me on the
refreshing to
screen.
hear. I was gonna say it's kind of refreshing to have you actually talk some praise about it, just to at
Yep.
least get like an inverse opinion to it. But yeah, I mean, fair enough. So I'm trying to think what they. Well, I can't remember exactly what they say, but I mean, for you, it was easy. So, I mean, did you buy this one, or did someone get you into it?
No, I bought it. Absolutely.
I mean,
Yep.
I can see why you would just by looks alone, because it does. I mean,
Yeah.
Days of Wonder never puts out an ugly game, period. But
Yeah. They even said outbid your opponents, and all that kind of stuff. Still
over
salty.
that, I was gonna say, is this your gaming buddy?
You know what? Yeah, it's a buddy of mine in Finland. We played on stream actually.
All right, so this is one of your Twitch games, is it?
Yep.
Is that he doesn't? He's not happy that you lost. Ah, fair enough. All right, you'll have to. All right, we need to rematch then.
Yep.
You'll have to do that. Best way to do it, and make sure you let the Wookiee win. All right, let the Wookiee win. Right. So on my 5. All right, we're going. I admit, particularly with what's happening these days, or sorry, this is probably not the best sort of game to bring up, but I do love this game. I detach from reality when I play this because it is gritty, it is depressing, it's not the most, like, what's the word, happy-go-lucky of subject matters, but I love a good thematic game. I played the video game of this, which certainly helped, and I thought, oh, am I going to like a board game version of
Can I
it?
guess? Can I guess?
But yeah, go for it.
This war of mine?
Yeah, swore mine. As I say, this is one of those games where I kind of liked it on the PC and that, but I played the board game and just fell in love with how dark and I know it's weird to say like I fell in love with something that was dark and depressing, but I like story games like that because they give that sense of realism with it. It's not like, oh, I'm a superhero doing this or I've got like special powers and that. No, this is the gritty realism of trying to survive. And the pictures aren't helping on this front. I'm trying to find something a bit more of the game, but this will have to do. But it had a cool little tutorial book, but just that thing of I've got these survivors. I gotta try and survive hell, basically. Things are getting bombed outside. People are getting.
Everything is bad in this game.
Yeah, everything's bad, and as I say, subject matter is not ideal, particularly at the moment. But you got to detach yourself from reality a little bit with this one. But it's just the fact is that because it's so dark and gritty, you want to do as like the best that you can with these survivors.
Yeah.
You feel bad if one of them does die for whatever reason, and certainly you can't let. I don't think you can let one die. You lose the game, or is like too many. I can't remember. I think there's a certain cap, but the scenarios are decent when you get the expansion to vary it, and the main. I mean, it's fantastic with the Days of the Siege expansion that it had. That campaign is one of the best story-driven campaigns I've ever played. Like, it's fantastic writing, fantastic plot, branching paths, great endings, multiple endings. It is fantastic. But this base game alone, just today, it captures the video game pretty much near perfect. Yes, you don't necessarily. I mean, even the exploration phase. Yes, you don't have another board with a new location. It's done by cards, but the scavenging and everything else, and the fact that people might come around and raid your stuff, building your house, trying to get a heater, trying to get a cooking pot or whatever, or a guitar. It's so perfectly represented. And I just, as soon as I played the first game and got mullered, I set it up and I wanted to go again. It's like, no, give me more stories. I want to go see what happens if I go to this place now. And it just, it really did suck me in. Obviously, bear it in mind that it's like, you kind of want to watch like a Disney movie afterwards, like a nice happy, friendly Pixar movie.
I think my playthrough video on my channel is this game is my #1 viewed video. That's how much people want to be depressed.
What this particular game?
Yeah, my playthrough of that game is my best performing video on my channel.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Although that's kind of worried.
That's what I mean.
It's like, why? Although I don't know. I don't watch Twitch usually, but maybe I'll have to sort of try and see. Is it on your YouTube? Did you edit that one down?
I did. Yeah, that's what I mean on the YouTube channel. It's my #1 performing video.
All right, I'm gonna have to search that one out.
Crazy.
Must have missed that. I missed that one out because I got to see how that went. think I
I don't
must
think
have
it went
missed
well.
that. What? Well, I'm guessing it didn't go well because most of the time it doesn't go well in this. But
Yep.
yeah, story beautiful. Looks
It
great.
is very beautiful.
Can't wait for Frostpunk because that's going to give me a similar feel. I hope. It, dark gritty stories are just more interesting. I think. I know
Sure.
it sounds like really horrible to say that, but there's just something about a dark setting. Like one of my favorite TV series is Black Mirror. And if you
Ah,
ever watch that series, that is dark as all get out.
yep.
But man, it's so good. I mean, it makes you feel uncomfortable in a good way. If it gets you in the feels that much, it's done its job. It's hooked you in and it's engaged you. Whereas, you could watch, various other things and then by the end you're like, yeah, whatever. Didn't care either way. But these ones you do. It affects you in some way. It's definitely worth a watch. But again, bearing in mind that it is dark, horrible, and gritty. All right. Okay. Well, let's see. Can we go on to something a bit lighter, please? Bring us back to Happy La La Land.
Happy La La Land. Well, it's a little bit Happy La La Land, I think.
Mine certainly is actually. Just
Oh,
looking at
okay,
it, but we'll
cool.
get onto that. Yours first.
I'll go halfway up the ramp and you take us to the top. So this is another deck builder of sorts. Deck builder is the main mechanic in this game. It combined deck building with board game, I think for the first time in board game dumb or board game history. That would be Clank.
I'd say Clank, that or Tyrants, one of the two.
So deck builder, so we don't need to get to the deck building part, but plus board games. So the fact that you're using resources to either purchase cards for your deck or using those resources to behave or use your meeple on the board to move about and attack monsters, get to places, purchase those artifacts to unlock doors that other people can't get to, or maybe you buy a boat for, if you have that expansion, you buy a boat to cross the river, or whatever you can do. But it's not just limited to building your deck, but building your deck is obviously first and foremost important to do the other strategic things. That was really fun, but also the humor. The pop culture references are great in this, and if you read the flavor text, it's awesome. If you haven't been reading the flavor text on these cards, and you do play this game a lot, be sure to do so because there are some really hidden gem quotes on those cards. So yeah, artwork, the race for that elusive artifact. Do you get down to the bottom of the thing, or do you get the cheapest artifact and run out? Yeah, Clank is just phenomenal. I've got all of the expansions. I just haven't. I'm sorry, I'm missing Apocalypse for Space, but I haven't played those single board expansions. I haven't played them yet, but I do have them. The Ape Temple and the Spider thing and the Dwarven thing and the other thing.
I haven't even heard of those. I thought there was an underwater one and then one other.
Yeah, so there are some expansions that are just in a clamshell. It's just a board.
Okay.
With a sheet of paper, the rules for both sides of the boards. One side is Dwarven Mine, and the other side is the Spider and Silk expansion. And then the other one was the Temple of the Ape Lords, and I can't remember the other side of that board. So if you run out of stuff to do in Clank, buy those board expansions for like $15, I don't know, $15, $20. Now you have 2 more boards to play all over again.
That does sound pretty good, actually, that idea. I'd only played the underwater one once. I played Clank a couple of times, a few times. I mean, this would actually be... I mean, I like it fine. I don't love Clank. I've not played Clank Legacy. I'd like to try that one. I think Kabuki wants to as well. This one, though, in my first play, would be the polar opposite of this list. It almost killed the game for me. Now I kind of think it's fine. I like it fine. I don't love it, but I don't hate it either. But the first game really was a downer because I tried the rush tactic as my first thing, thinking, okay, well, what happens if I just go in, grab the first thing, and try and get out? It was one of the worst experiences I'd had. Like, I finished quick, and then I'm doing nothing for 6 turns, and then this dragon that is supposedly meant to go and eat people is inept and unable to do anything. So everybody else just harvests cards and gets out and beats me on all the points. It's like, wow, okay, I am definitely playing this again, but I will refuse to do rush ever again. It's like, I'm not putting myself through that hell again. But don't make it an option.
Strategy at best.
I say, don't make rush an option, if it's that bad, But now it's like, okay, I'm going to spend as long as I can down there because, frankly, I've yet to see the dragon actually do any discernible amount of, eating.
I've been eating.
It usually gets 1 or 2 people or so, but they're usually losing the game anyway. So it's like, well, if they get eaten, big deal. But I've never seen a big switcheroo where the person who was in the lead gets eaten. I mean, it does. It obviously depends on how you play the game. I think I've only played it a few times. I guess it just turned out that way. And I would like to play Legacy version. I hear a
Yeah,
lot of good things about that, and that does sound. That sounds like that's the version of Clank I want to play. You know,
yeah,
that
it's
particular
fun.
one. But yeah, it's gonna be would agree. You have to warn people away from the grab and rush method. And yeah, take it from me. Do not play the rush method. It sucks in every way, shape, or form, and almost killed any chance of me playing this a second time. So once people convinced me, no, Luke, it's all right. That strategy sucks. Don't do that anymore. And it's like, fine, I'll play it again. It's
Excellent.
like, oh, it didn't work. But the right, so well, I mean, that's not a depressing game, really. I mean, the dragon's a bit of like it's light-hearted. The dragon's
Oh yeah.
inept. You know, it's all good. But now we're going to pretty much as high as we can on the happiness scale because, well, the clue is in the title. It's like this game is about happiness. It is about leading the perfect life, the pursuit of happiness, shall we
Oh,
say?
all
And
right.
this one, we're now getting into these top four where I've got really strong memories now because the ones beforehand, I'm like, oh yeah, these ones have hooked me, but you know, I sort of try to remember, apart from the Arnak one, I'm sort of like, oh yeah, I remember that first game and this sort of stuff happened. These top four, yeah, I can remember these vividly. This
Yeah.
one was my first trip to Essen, and
Oh,
it was a demo at Artipia Games. Barely knew the publisher, did not hear of this game. I had nothing to go by. I just saw it was colourful, and people basically mentioned, as I describe it, it's the game of life, the Eurogame. You know, it is essentially that. But this whole concept of you're leading your life from start to finish, from teenager to old age. Clearly, I can tell you've not played this one, but I mean, even, I don't know which I'd say this one first or Whistle Mountain, but you're grabbing these cards to like level up and get bonuses, and the blues are like projects you do, like grow a bonsai tree, learn how to skateboard, you know, that kind of thing. These are green items and like vacations you can go on. You can get a job, you can go date Susie or Greg or whatever, raise a family, just date relationship. How good a job do you want? Am I going to own a house, a coin collection, or maybe I'm just going to spend most of my life like doing writing dodgy fiction and getting plays
yeah.
made. It's sandbox in that sense. You know, you can kind of, the story you tell is based on what cards you get. And yes, there is an efficient way of doing it. I mean, it's like, right, I've got a lot of this resource. I could do with a bit more of this. Well, that card allows me to do it. But because it's, you know, it is essentially telling the story as you do it. And by the end of the game, you just tell like the most ridiculous stories or you get sucked into the theme. But when I played this one at Essen, I literally, like, 3 or 4 players, didn't know them. And I thought, okay, so you're basically telling me I can live my own life. Cool. So I took the starting player power setup was like, I took nerd. Okay. It's like, what were you as a kid? And it's like, right, I'm just going to do myself then. So I just tried to create my own life in this game. So I thought, all right, hang on a minute. So I did used to do Warhammer. So there's a miniatures collection. Oh, there's a board game collection. We can do that. You know, there's no like girlfriend at the time, so fine, we won't have a date, but I will have a job. Let's find a business one. And I tried to sort of copy my life as
Yeah.
we went through. And I think 75% kind of succeeded, but so which is, I'm not sure if and won the game with it, so I suppose it worked. But it just, every time I play this one, it's still that same thing of I get to tell a fun story with
That's
all these
cool.
different cards. The expansions, I'll admit, I've bloated it a bit. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, I did a video on the guide to all the expansions, and yeah, there is quite a lot. But when you throw in all the extra cards, you just have so much variety in this game and just tell the most ridiculous stories possible. And it's,
Cool.
you know, not that complicated, the system. What's he got here? So he was diligent as a kid, and he's currently trying to be a TV presenter. So he's
Is this
starting at like
2 to 4 player?
1 to 4 player. Yeah, you can play it solo. You know, you've got these objectives that all the players can gun for extra points. They've also got solo objectives that you have to meet in order to win the solo mode. But yeah, it's just such a good one. I've raved about this on quite a few videos. I've done guides. I've got, you know, I did them for Artipia for their Kickstarter for the recent lot. They're going to send me the big box and the nostalgia expansion, so you can bet I'm going to be doing some, you know, content on that or playing it to death. I just love this one. But as I said, it's from day one, went into it, treated it like a sandbox game. It probably actually was maybe one of the first sandbox games from modern gaming I remember playing. So maybe that's a factor. Just one of those things where it said, you know, so which direction should I take? Whatever you want. okay. let's see. Let's see how this goes. And I think this is probably one of the turning points where I said, yeah, this is why I love sandbox games.
Sure.
You definitely got to try this one. I think this one's probably more up your street even than
Looks
Whistle
incredible.
but and yeah, a lot of people have not come across it. I mean, RTPA games kind of have that thing that, you kind of have heard of the game or not, but I definitely recommend that one for people. All right.
All right.
Well, I don't think we can get any more happy than those, but we'll try our best.
Okay. Let's see. I've got a few left here. Let's go to Dice Throne. I didn't have much of a build-up on this one.
Nope,
Dice
straight
Throne,
in there.
Yeah, straight in there.
I've still not played this.
Artwork. It is phenomenally gorgeous. And it's not that like I won't play a game if it doesn't have good art, but if it has art like this, you better believe I'm grabbing it off the shelf.
Well, that's the way it is. People say that, why do I need good artwork in a game? If I'm going to take it off the shelf, I want it to look good. If I'm going to play it over and over again, I want it to look pleasing. If it looks like a dog's dinner, if it looks like, Castles of Burgundy or Carpe Diem or something like that, then I'm unlikely to want to play it. It doesn't look, it won't tickle the senses, but I digress. Carry on. I need to know more about this game, so.
Cross off Castles of Burgundy.
No way could that have hooked you from day one. No. Surely
All
not.
Right. Dice Throne. Just go ahead, start rolling through the pictures. I'll give it some a breakdown here. Well, the name says a lot. The dice are awesome. They could be chunkier, but they are also beautiful.
Yeah, they're too small. 0 out of 10. They're too small.
Yeah, I love that they put the characters' attacks on the dice with the numeral value as well. It wasn't just numbers, and it's not pips. Each individual character has their own set of dice. I think that's great. I mean, it's a glorified Yahtzee in a lot of ways. However, the fact that I can build my board out for those powers to be whatever I want them to be, as opposed to being stuck with what they are. Yeah, Dice vs. Cards says, enjoy some Dice Throne. Looking forward to playing adventures. Man, this game hooked me day one. I immediately scheduled a tournament with my son and a friend of mine. When we finally got the first full set, we drafted all the different heroes. We built brackets and we did 1v1 tournament breakdown style and had a champion come out ahead. It was so much fun. We literally played probably 7 hours straight. This was day one, mind you. So you talk about hooked from day one. That was it. All the ways that the cards interacted with each other. You could spend your little combat points to draw more cards or spend combat points to play those cards. So you had to balance combo points as well. It's just really, really great. So there's the combat point dial, your health dial. One of the other good things about this, you mentioned a different game I brought up. You wished it was just a little shorter. All you do here
this is a quick one, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, you set your health dial. If you don't have a lot of time, cut it in half. Or you want to play a longer game, make your health dial big. They even talk about it in the rule book, from what I remember. It's just a lot of fun. This is, you want to sit down and throw some dice and have some combat with a friend. That fits the bill.
Yeah, they get it. The price point, I think, put me off at little first, because it did it like in seasons, and it was quite a lot of content for.
Yeah, like, the seasons was kind of convoluted. Like season 1 was an all together, but then season 2 was 4 different packs, and so they could get them cheaper for, they were 2 packs. Season 2, but then you had to get 4 2-packs or something, as opposed to a big 8-pack. It was really odd.
Main thing for this is that it's complicated, because if I go, right, let's say I want to just get into Dice Throne. I've got a Dice Throne here, then I got season 1, then there's Adventures, then there's season 2 Battle Chest, then there's Rerolled, now there's a Marvel one, then there's these various little bits. It's like, where do I even begin?
Yeah. I hear
it's
you.
like kinda,
I guess you'd begin in Rerolled now, because they came out with a new edition, and that's Rerolled.
That one, yeah. And it's like, I mean, did that fix, or did it just tweak stuff, I guess?
I didn't bother to get it because I like what I got.
Chance, I mean, somebody mentioned Marvel Dice. I got to admit, that's probably one thing. I wouldn't really care that much if I was generic Barbarian or Fantasy or something like that. But, I could see myself wanting to jump into a Marvel one.
Art, it's so captivating. I really wish they would show the backs of those boards, because it's full art, like
nice,
very comic book style. I mean, it's great.
I want to try this game, because it does sound. I think maybe because it's only 1v1, right?
Yep.
Yeah, maybe that was the thing, because I can't get 2 players to the table that often. I mean, even like Fields of Isle had to be a solo game mainly. It's like I don't have the setup for 2 players. So I think that sort of put me off this one, because I thought it was just going to sit on the shelf and not do anything. But it sounds like something enjoy it. And I must admit, this does look really cool, and I love Marvel. So if somebody wants to introduce me to Dice Throne, I think Marvel Dice Throne is going to be the way to do it. Yeah, I know it's not for everybody, but it's like, maybe they'll do a DC one for you. I don't know. I mean, to be honest, I'd do either, frankly. Do I get to be Doctor Strange, or do I get to be Batman? Either way, I'm happy. So, but yeah, I can see that one being a good one for the list. And I say, I want to try it. Just never had the pleasure. It's definitely on that wish list. Okay, number 3. Somebody called this one earlier, mainly because I must admit recently I haven't shut up about it. And frankly, nor is anybody else in the known cosmos has shut up about this game, because most people are getting sick and tired of hearing about it on Facebook. But what can I say? I played it at a recent convention, Paul Grogan's GridCon. We were already anticipating it because I didn't get it at Essen, because I had no intention of queuing up for 90 minutes to get one of 10 copies the publisher had there. But somebody, Board Then Play called it. 20 minutes into this game, I knew I wanted Art Nova. And I know that's very Cult of the New, but I thought, right, this is a theme I like. Animals. I like animals. This is already a good start. I took a while to warm up to Terraforming Mars, and even then I only find it above average if you play it a certain way. For a while I just really was sick and tired of hearing about it. So I can understand where people are coming from if you say you're sick and tired of hearing Art Nova. But this one I thought, okay, similar card thing, but now I get to build a zoo. Fantastic. I'm already into that theme. And we played it, and I knew, and the first thing it said is, right, this mechanic that you love out of Civilization: A New Dawn on my shelf, now it's in this game. Okay, that's already sold me. What else is there? And then 30 minutes later, after going through that action row several times, and everybody around the table, but me especially, sort of just making jokes and comments about, I got I got a little kitty cat, now I want another kitty cat. I'm trying to think what I was doing. I think I was doing birds in the first game, so I was just obsessed with finding all the hawks and sparrows and parrots or something, and I just got instantly sucked into the theme setting of this game. Like I say, it helps that I like animals, and even though it's not the most aesthetically pleasing game, I mean, the cards are cool. I think the card artwork and photos are beautiful, but yeah, the boards are more functional than anything else, and the tokens are kind of as you'd expect. But yeah, I just instantly got hooked. We barely even a quarter of the way through the game, and I'm like, this is going to be one I like, isn't it? And then the game finished 3.5 hours later or something like that, because we were 4 of us learning it pretty much half from the rulebook. Right. We were trying to go into it blind. We didn't care. I was already like, can I play this game again now? Please. And funny enough, I did. I jumped into a free player that somebody was calling players for, and then Mark Dainty, because he kept talking to him about it, he said, well, if you get a chance, teach me at this convention. And by fluke, we managed to get it out of the library. Don't ask me how. I think it was a cancellation slot, because there was only one copy there. And it's like, can you teach me this? Well, I guess if you're going to tug me elbow, I'll teach it. Will you hurry up and set it up already? It's like, I just instantly wanted to do it. And I've played it enough solo. It's hooked me from day one, and it is one of my favorites currently at the moment. I just love being able to do a different strategy each game with whichever board I pick, with what cards I flip, what my zoo map looks like, or mainly I just love grabbing these cards.
What triggers endgame in this one?
A mechanic straight out of Rajas of the Ganges. If you've ever played that one, there's basically 2 main scoring markers around it. That's all the different sort of asymmetric boards, but around the board, there's an appeal track for points, and there's this conservation one here, the green one. As soon as the 2 markers meet, that triggers the end game.
Okay.
So whether you're getting appeal from having animals in your zoo, or getting the conservation points from getting sponsors or supporting conservation projects, that is up to you. So your 2 markers could cross at different points. And then once you've done endgame scoring, it's a case of, well, what's the gap between those 2 markers, positive or negative? It's kind of a weird way of scoring, but by that point it snowballs a bit. It takes a while to get going, and then it speeds up points wise. But just absolutely love it.
Yeah, it looks really nice.
It's like I say, it's a heavy game, and this does everything that I wanted Terraforming Mars to do. So, I would happily play this one first. I like the idea of a game called Spirit Nova with Luke Explode, combining Spirit Island with this. It'd be interesting. But this mechanic, I want to see in more games. This whole focus row of taking action, but the higher up the row it is, the more powerful it is. Civilization: A New Dawn was the first one to introduce it. Ark Nova is the only game since to take that mechanic.
Huh.
And it needs to be in more games because I think it's a great mechanic. It's an efficiency puzzle, of trying to think, well, when's the best time to trigger the action? Do I save it up? Oh, I want these miniatures. Where did this person get these little miniatures? I want them. They're not in the game.
Etsy.
Oh, that it could be. I don't know. I need to look out for that because that's already amazing. I don't know, but yeah, I digress. Everyone's heard me talk about this game way too much, so it's like fine. But what can I say? I played it recently and was hooked. So it's only probably not my 2 or 1 because I can think that my 1 and 2 hooked me even more from the first game, but also, even though one of them is recent, it's not super cold to the new, like it released in 2021 December type game. So I figured that maybe putting this one at number 1 might be a little bit like cheesy. But on to 2s.
Okay. This is a game, and I'll tell you, this is the one I thought we would have a crossover with, and I only have 2 slots left.
Yeah, we haven't had one yet. I didn't think we were going to cross over personally, but
And again, so before the stream, I told you talked a bit about this game on various different videos, and you did a pretty good expansion breakdown on one of your videos as well for this particular game. This game had 5 different box arts for it.
Oh, Abyss
art. You remember we just talked about, if I want to take a box off the shelf, it better look good.
Big giant fish face, yeah, why not?
But the colors, right, set on that black background, it just was vibrant. I mean, look at that. You want to, okay, what in the world is that? It may not be pretty, but
it's Bruno Cafala.
It's shocking, right? So
yeah, that's Bruno Cafala's face. They just photoshopped it a little bit. That's all it is.
I think they added a scale or 2.
Well, I mean, if you wake up in the morning from at the worst time, don't most people look like this?
Or that. So art, first and foremost, once again, takes me to the box at least, and then I read about it, and I buy it because it's drafting in a sense. At its core, you're drafting those cards from the top row. I forgot what they call the top row. It's just basically the draft row. But then any cards that are left up in that top row then go down into the council, face down. Then you can either draft the top row or draft any pile from the council. Then you use those cards from the council to buy those leaders. Is that what they are? Leaders at the bottom?
Yeah, basically lords, leaders, whatever you want to call them.
You're buying lords at the bottom. And then when you pay for them, you keep your lowest number of that set that you played. Like, all of that stuff was so cool to try to combine. Like, okay, do I overpay it just so I can keep that highest number guy on my boards to score at the end game? You're trying to get those little keys, they call them. You get 3 keys, you build a city. And then after so many cities, the game kind of ends. But all the different ways that the factions that are in there, you can see the purple, the orange, and the yellow, and the green, and whatever, the blue, the way they interact with each other, I thought was really cool too. They did a good job theming out the different factions. They didn't when they went, like the crabs comes to mind. They're just all about destruction and terrorizing the opponents, this and that, right? Or the diplomat.
It's quite as bad as that. I mean, they're the warrior faction, so they got a few slightly dicky powers, but it's not like they demolish your entire tableau.
Well, right, but that's their goal, right? Is to come at you. So, and they even look stronger in the cards, right? They're beefier and bigger, and just the way they did that whole thing, I thought was really, really dynamic. So, this one definitely grabbed me at the first play.
Besides that, the artwork, but just this whole thing of like, right, I've got the allied cards, that decision of, right, well, I could try and hunt for this 5, because a 5 is obviously the best number you can get, but then the council's sitting there with a bunch of 1 blues, and I do need some blues in order to get this particular lord, so why not? That board is already beautiful. I've got the playmat for it. As you mentioned, I did do the first ever Beyond the Base Game videos I did were based on Abyss, so people wanted to know about the Kraken and the Leviathan expansion and why Leviathan is a must-buy for this game, even if you've not played the game yet. It's there. And also, That's why this isn't a crossover. It's, yes, I do love this game. It is a top
Yep.
10 game for me. But the thing that Leviathan replaces is what made me a little skeptical at first. Because I played it and enjoyed it, and I thought, right, I need to play this more, I need to try different lords out and see what happens. But this track, this monster track, was the one thing in the base game where I thought, this doesn't work.
Yes.
Yes, it's the one part of the base game where I'm like, why is that in there? It feels tacked on. And I wonder if I'm
There's
lucky,
no
I'll
pictures of it
find a
'cause nobody
lord.
likes it.
That is true, yeah, but I wondered if I could just find it in passing, but it's probably not going to happen. But it's just the fact that when you draw these little cards out of the
Up
deck,
top, above the board.
is it?
Way above the board. Keep going.
Oh, there, yeah, this bit. Well, it's basically just a marker you move along the track to say, right, when you draw a monster card out of the deck when you're finding allies, you have a choice of taking a bonus. There we go. You either take the bonus on the right or you move the marker up. But there's only so many monster cards in the deck, and it's dumb because nobody ever doesn't take the bonus at the second or third level, because the likelihood of you getting it higher at that point is so unlikely it's unreal, and you're not getting that much extra for it. So it just felt like such a weird mechanic, and that did put me off. Like, I thought, I enjoyed this and this really, like, lots, but what is it with this thing? And then eventually I still enjoyed it. I think it still became like a top 50 game for me without the expansions, because I thought, all right, let's just overlook that as a kind of minor thing. The rest of the game is just that good. As soon as I got Kraken and Leviathan in it, though, boom, top 10 game. It removes the monster track, it replaces it with those Leviathan cards, and the game instantly became like fantastic at that point. So it wasn't quite day one. It needed just that little expansion push to make it truly like the game I wanted it to be.
Look at that 10.0 you rated that expansion.
Oh, it is a must buy. It's like, even if you've not played the game before, it's the 10 out of 10 expansion is the definition of essential.
Yeah.
You know, once you replace that monster track with these Leviathans, which look absolutely drop dead gorgeous, it's unreal. You never take it out of the box. It's like you will never do it.
Yeah, I would definitely. If somebody were to ask me if I wanted to play this, I would say yes before the second S came out of their mouth.
Yeah, definitely. I'd say I do love it. It just wasn't a day one, but yeah, I'm glad that you're also a fan. Abyss or Aquatica. I must admit, Aquatica has been on my shelf for ages, and I've played it once. I don't know why I don't keep bringing it. I need to try it some more, but I would play Abyss but over Aquatica like any day. I think Abyss is a much better game. They're not that similar. I mean, they've got different mechanics, even though they are slightly card games, but I mean, both are good. Yeah. All right, where's Abe? Praising Abyss, yeah. Not a crossover, but yeah, certainly one of my favorites. Number 2 for me is a party game, which probably wasn't expecting to see turn up, but I have to admit, a lot of party games I still enjoy playing because I want to have a laugh and chuckle, and you know, some of them I play and I go, oh, that's nice, it's fine, we can do it every now and again. This one took a mechanic that I already liked in other games, so it's like, okay, this is pretty good start, you know, I'm already going to probably like this, but I thought this could be fragile. I like the sound of it, but let's see what happens. By the time I was done through the first game, I was in tears. Like joyful, falling out of my chair tears, because I've never had a bad game of Detective Club at all. This game just constantly works, and the first game was a trepidation one. I thought, oh, I don't know, will this work or not? Having Spyfall mixed with the Dixit mechanic. So all those gorgeous Dixit cards, but this idea that essentially you're taking it in turns again to be a clue giver, but what happens is that you make a single word clue and then write that word on all but one of these little notepads and then give them out to players. So a bit like Spyfall, where one person doesn't know where they are. In here, one person doesn't know what the clue word is. Everybody else does. But then everybody has to put Dixit cards out in front of them to essentially illustrate what's similar to that word. You know, so you know, they say, try to think of a word, but you know, if they say pleasure, whatever, you got to put out some cards that illustrate this, and then you're essentially going round explaining why your cards relate to that word. If you don't know what the word was, you've got to backtrack and try and like bluff your way out of the situation. But even if you knew what the word was, your cards could just suck. In the sense that nothing relates to the word, and so everybody sounds like they're the bad guy, the the imposter because their stories that they give sound stupid, and that's what makes this game hilarious. I've taught this at dice events. I've not even been in the game, and I just want to stand at the table and watch it. Like somebody's like, "Oh, Luke, can you teach them this?" It's like, I don't want to. I want to watch him play this because I'm just laughing my head off. If I'm playing it, I'm falling out of my chair. If I'm watching it, I'm just like trash talking all the various stories that they'll say. Is like, oh yeah, this totally works because as you can see, this card has this tiny little thing on it, and that kind of relates to fishing. It's like, what? It's like, and I'm just calling people out.
You didn't see the 2 raindrops in the background? That's not raindrops. I spilled my water on the...
Yeah, it's just such a good one. And it's like iGames did this one, and it's the same designer who did Settlement, the recent sort of gateway worker placement game. I think that came out last year. So it's like not a well-known publisher and not necessarily a well-known designer either. But if you like the Dixit cards and if Spyfall took your fancy, this is a must-buy.
I would love to. I don't have the group. I don't have the party game group, like 0. I have a max group of 3 at times, and I maybe could get away with Spyfall, barely. Right?
Even then,
you just have to be really good, but it still wouldn't have the same flair, right? I love Spyfall and I love Dixit. I'm in a very small minority for Dixit lovers in my groups, but it's too bad too because it can be pretty good. This seems really fun, and
it is, but
challenging.
3 won't work. I mean, you really want 5. It goes up to 8. 5, 6, 7, or 8 is perfect for this game. You know, you can play it for as long as you want, but typically each person is the clue giver once, and you're kind of good. But I don't care if the game goes on a little long or something, because I'm too busy laughing my head off. So.
Yeah, this looks really clever.
And it's not too challenging in the sense. I mean, the way the scoring works is that the clue giver wants the imposter to get through. So again, a bit like Dixit, your clue can't be too obvious, but it can't be too obscure either. You know, you've got to find a way to create doubt without that, and that's a hard-ish part. But you've only got one word, so it's a bit easier than saying like a whole soliloquy for Dixit, for example. But that's
what I liked most about Dixit was that you needed that balance between too vague and too specific.
Yeah, and you've got to do it with this one because I mean, if you make your clue word something generic like water, then it's very easy for people to sort of like the imposter could stick out like a sore thumb really easily just because they just happen to not put out a water card, which is a little dangerous. But then if you make it so cryptic that you'd be lucky if any of the picture cards have it, that can work because everybody looks dodgy, but then the imposter again can stick out so much like a sore thumb. But it gives you, because you get points for figuring out who the imposter is, you know, there is the incentive to get people on your side. You know, you won't. They will get more points for getting past unclaimed, like the imposter succeeding, than you will for getting it right.
Right.
So telling everybody else, making everybody vote for you because they're not, you know, getting points as well, will ultimately not work. So it kind of balances that out. But so much fun. It's like this was the one of like, it's fragile. Is it going to work? Is it going to work? Boom, it's now in the library. This is actually one of the ones at my Portsmouth Game Club where I actually have to bring my copy along regardless because the one in the library keeps getting nicked by other people at my club. So we need 2 copies of this going at the same time because ever since I showed it to people, it's that popular.
Cool.
Which is kind of cool. It's like, yay, the club's played a game I recommended. That's good. So there's not many of those. All right, what could beat these? Gotta be good.
I took the leap into big giant games, right? I took that leap in Feast of Odin. We talked about that earlier. Once I overcame my fear of big giant games, I went and got a bigger gianter game. This thing was, or is, I'm staring at it right there on my shelf. Let's see, is it? No, it's not in the picture. It's a little higher than that.
Please say it's not Gloomhaven.
Oh, no. I have a very interesting take on why I don't like Gloomhaven.
Good, I'm fine with that.
All right, let's see.
Any
this one is for Gale Force 9. Yeah, has a lot to do with my love of Star Trek, which doesn't help you because every Star Trek game is Gale Force 9.
Is it? I thought they were more Firefly, but okay, fine.
No, I mean, all Star Trek games are done by Gale Force 9, from what I understand. But I digest Star Trek Ascendancy. This game,
That I didn't expect.
this game is massive, and I am a huge Star Trek fan. And not every Star Trek game, but most Star Trek games have let me down time and time and time again. So this Star Trek Ascendancy, very overwhelming table presence, very overwhelming price point again, very overwhelming everything, pieces, the number of pieces, all the stuff you're seeing on the boards, right? But I conquered Feast for Odin, so I thought, doggone it, I'm going to give this one a shot.
Especially
And
if you're a
man,
Star Trek fan, yeah.
Right. Well, that added to it, right? So cracked it open, learned to play it, played with my game group, and we had a really, really good time. It took a long time though, because there was so much to unpack, learning everything about everybody's player powers, this, that, and the other thing. We had such fun though. We were texting the whole week after, hey, we didn't do this right, but next time we play it, we do this. Like we were so like after the game, we were still in the game. You know what I mean? We were still talking about it in our text thread. And I was just elated that they all liked it as much as I did. Couldn't wait to get it back to the table. We fixed those rule errors and had more fun the next time. So definitely my number one, hooked me from day one, would be Star Trek Ascendancy for sure. This is not a light game at all. Like this is your afternoon for real.
I really want to play this. I like Star Trek as well. Well, some series I don't like, some I love. It's very much a cherry pick which ones I like. And to be fair, I'm liking Discovery more and more as I watch it. But
Dice versus Cards. So Dice versus Cards, they putting off buying Ascendancy because of its rigid player count. I mean, three, in my opinion, three works beautifully.
I was going to say, that's actually a selling point for me because 3 is typically the best number to play most games with. It's like it doesn't stretch that boundary of going on too long or being too fiddly, but then it's better than 2. And so this would work for me, but the Star Trek theme would...
Right, where you literally put your planets down on open space. They give you some guidelines in the rule book where, okay, no farther than these dimensions. But from then, and you build those space lanes to connect planets, and you just get to put them wherever you want until a planet is connected by another planet. So in this particular example, the planet in the bottom right corner with all those ships on it, the planet that's north of that can still swivel left and right on that space lane until it's connected to another one. Then it's locked in. So the one with all those ships is locked in place. Right. But if I need that one, the top one, to connect to the bottom left one, I can do it with a space lane and connect all three into a triangle.
I say there's a lot of rules in this one. Is it right that didn't this one come out with a Borg expansion that allowed you to play with 2?
Yes, it does have a Borg expansion, and you're right, Kabuki Kid. I mean, you could really play with 2 if you wanted to. 2 players. I just think it would be better with 3. I haven't played with the Borg expansion. I have it. I have the Borg expansion. I haven't played with it. I've read the rules, and it's you take an intimidating game and you add intimidating rules to it. That's what I feel like the Borg expansion is doing to my brain. So I just haven't got that to the table yet. The Borg expansion, in my opinion, makes this hard game a lot harder.
Quite possibly. I mean, you can always have too much of a thing, but this is high on the playlist. I like Star Trek fine. I have no interest in the Frontiers one, which I hear is just Mage Knight with Star Trek. It's like, I will not go near that one. Right. But this one being effectively like a Twilight Imperium for Star Trek, sounds cool. A friend of mine, I think, has this. I haven't seen him in years. It's like, when would he ever decide to, host an event around his house and like bring us around, because I want to play this? Or somebody at a convention, somebody bring this to the next Baycon I'm going to soon, or GridCon, the next convention in the UK. Somebody bring this game and teach me it, because I still want to play it.
The factions, I'll give you a quick, maybe 30-second review for those, how well they themed them out. You say you're a Star Trek fan, yeah?
Ish, yeah.
Okay, are you familiar with the Cardassians?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So obviously the Federation of Planets, they just want to go out and make everybody happy, so that's their thing. The Klingons want to go out and just shoot and destroy. They get victory points. That's their thing. The Romulan, they get victory points for stealing everybody else's technology.
Yeah, they're all tricksy.
The Cardassians only generate resources if you leave a ship on the planet to keep badgering the workers to perform. They keep occupying. If they're
Yeah.
not occupying the planet, they will not produce resources, but everybody else will freely produce resources. It's just really neat how they themed all those out. Even with the Ferengi, it's crazy.
Definitely one I want to do. I mean, what
Play it.
was it? I love Next Generation, I love Voyager, and I love Discovery. They're the three key ones I like. I didn't like Deep Space Nine. Didn't like what was it? What was that
Enterprise?
weird one? Yeah, I didn't like that one at all. The original I give respect for, but it's a bit cringy at this point to rewatch that one. And I didn't like the Picard series. That was a shame. But then that was bad writing. It had nothing to do with Patrick Stewart. So
Yeah, imagine if it was better. That production value, how much better that could have been, right?
yeah, if they actually just got a competent writer. But yeah, and yeah, I love Borg. Yeah, so Borg's always good. So yeah, it's high on my wish list. It could suck me in the first time I play it, but God knows when somebody is just gonna give me my wish and let me try it. For now I have to make do with Star Wars Rebellion because that's kind of like my next comparison tool. All right, number 1, Cult of the New-ish. It's not a new game because the game I think's come out since I have to type it in and find out. No, it's relatively new. Okay, 2018, but still. But I only got to play this at the last little convention I did because the only way you could get hold of this was on Kickstarter or to buy it direct from the publisher who's in the US only. Like, pretty much doesn't want to deliver over here. People know one of my favorite games being Sentinels in the Multiverse was, like, they're thinking, oh, why is this not on the list? Sentinels in the Multiverse still took me a few games to get like really hyped up about because of the admin bookkeeping in it. But this one is like, oh, you've got to play this game, Luke, because this will give you a similar feeling to Sentinels. And so eventually, after years of searching for anybody with the game, somebody did teach me a 2-player this at GridCon. And partway through the game, I'm instantly in love with the game. Like I said, Street Masters has really done me a good one here because this is basically a co-op skirmish style game which takes homage to things like Street Fighter, Streets of Rage, all those old classic games. It like does that theme down to a T. Now, hopefully I can find something other than miniatures, but I sort of thought like, okay, so I didn't necessarily go like mad on Sentinels in my first game, but when I played the 2-player game of this, again, it gives me, right, you have your own deck of cards. So whichever character I pick, there's my deck of cards. It has its own play style. You know, we took the 2 basic ones. He takes effectively Ryu and starts shooting like fireballs everywhere. I take effectively the equivalent of like a Sonya Blade Chun-Li girl type character who wants to get a bunch of cards prepped. She got kick attacks, and I go heads up with the boss and try and kick his head in. You know, you can... You play your different styles, but you've got all these different scenarios, all these different villain groups with a skirmish map for them, and you'll have objectives like, you know, get to weapons cache or, you know, protect a hostage, you know, all sorts of different scenarios. But when I played the first game of this, already I liked these from as a kid, you know, these Streets of Rage style games, you know, beat 'em ups and that. They're always good fun, same as Street Fighter, playing that on video games.
Right.
But having my own unique deck and being a co-op, again, always things I love because I feel like, right, I am this character and I'm playing very differently to the other character. But there was one trigger point I remember when I was sort of going, oh yeah, I'm really liking this. When you beat up you can find loot items over the map, and every time you beat up a minion character, you can get a loot item off them as well, and it's just drawn from a deck, and it's stuff that you typically think, right, you know, lead piping or first aid kit or whatever, right? First thing I drew out of a loot deck was a turkey roast dinner. Because if you ever remember those old games, like with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle ones, you kept finding pizzas everywhere, and like in some of those games, you look at a trash can and there's like a fully cooked dinner, and it replenishes your health or something. And it was just like
your health restores. Nothing like a turkey dinner.
But that was the thing. We joked about it. It was hilarious at the time. I needed it because I was slightly damaged. Yeah, that was the character I used. Yeah, this lady. But it was just like instant. Right, they got this theme. They knew what they were doing with this theme because I've just literally pulled the turkey roast dinner off this minion's corpse. It's like, that's hilarious. But I've been playing it more since, and it's still been great. I mean, I don't think it's quite up there with like Sentinels and stuff like that, but you know, if I want to play a skirmish style co-op solo as well, that's easy to multi-hand if I really want, but you can play it true solo and it still works. You know, a lot of these games don't. I get a good kick out of this one because you've got a great tactic. Was that?
Was that pun intended? You say you get a kick out of it?
No, only just noticed that. Right, fine. That's a good. That is a good one. But I can't claim. I can't claim that one. The skirmish map, though, I mean, it may look sort of basic, but depending what these objectives are, they'll do different things. The bosses that you fight against, the Golden Dragon boss, preps up a lot of different cards, but then you've got one that's a bit like Blanca from Street Fighter. One of the characters you can play, I mean, you've got like a pro wrestler, you've got the kicking girl, you've got Fireball guy, you've even got a panda warrior as one of them, like one of the expansions. It's like, it plays
on this.
But that's the thing, it plays on all those themes, those anime style beat 'em ups. It really does respect that. And when I played that first game, instantly thought I want this game in my collection, and then about a week or two later, somebody on Facebook was selling their collection up to date, and I bought it off them and even sent my friend up north in order to go get it as a courier because they were going up there anyway. And it's just like, yep, here's some money, I want this. And now you mentioned about Feast for Odin sorting out. Cool, blimey, I had to go mad with this for like about half a day to get it all organized the way I want to. But it's in the box downstairs, and it's definitely a purchase I don't regret.
What is player count on this one?
I think you can go up to 4.
Okay.
Most people tend to play it solo, but you could play it with 2 or 3 people. It just takes a bit longer. But you end up, you get the expansion Kickstarter.
Big box.
Well, this was the Aftershock Kickstarter where you had the base set, but you had all these other little expansions because it's like Kickstarter. You get all these different. It's a bit like Cool Mini, not in that respect, but all the stuff fits in the box fine. You got all the card dividers, you got all the boards, but this was basically a big box storage solution with a lot of stuff in it. So you can get a lot of content for this once you've done it. I mean, that's what the bottom of the box looks like. All these cards, and every single one of these and these 2 is a character you can play at this point. So I am strapped for choice. There's all my villains. There's all the villains. There's a bunch of locations. There's a load of characters.
So it is a lot like Sentinels.
As I say, that's why people kept telling me to grab it, because they said, Luke, if you like Sentinels, you're going to like this game. Because, again, Sentinels, you're a superhero, your own deck, full co-op. Yeah, there's the panda dude.
I love Sentinels.
It literally, what they said was true. So, It a little cold of the newish because I only played it like a few months ago, but let's face it, I effectively did an eBay purchase a week after. That's saying something.
Yeah.
Absolutely mad.
I backed that new Sentinels. I'm waiting on that to come in, hopefully, the end of this year.
I can't believe... Yeah, they didn't send me a review copy, despite the fact I've raved about it so much. I'm like, what? Seriously? That's like criminal? They're now, after I've asked, sending me a copy for review and a giveaway. UK only, but still, a giveaway in that, which would be great. But then I think I'm also getting I think Asmodee are sending me one just anyway, so it's kind of like, eventually I will have a copy of this wretched game, because obviously I'm going to like it, it's Sentinels, but I want to do the review to see what it's like compared to the original version, which is like in a giant box in the other room. So people want me to talk about it, and annoyingly I haven't had a copy of it yet, so it's coming, but yeah. Right, whew, blimey. Yeah, lots of praise there, lots of positivity. Let's not dwell too long on honourable mentions, but I also want to nip one off there, because a lot of people are sort of thinking, well, hang on a minute. Where did Spirit Island? Why is that not on the list? Because, I mean, bear in mind, it was my favourite. It was on my number 1 on my top 100, so why is Spirit Island up there? Vincent remembers very well. I didn't like my first play of it because the rules were badly explained. There was 3 of us. None of us really knew the game that well, because even the guy teaching us wasn't that au fait with the rules. And it dragged on. I remember liking it enough where I go, these spirits are great. The co-op's great. And yes, it's complex, but it's a cool puzzle. But man, that took a while, and I barely understood what I was doing. It was just one of those things where like a bad teach nearly spoiled it, and I didn't play the game again for about a good 2-3 years after that. But I always thought I'd return to it, So like at some point, somebody's going to teach, or I'm going to buy it, maybe, or someone's going to teach me it, and then eventually someone at my club did, and we played a 2-player, 3-player game of it properly, and that was what hooked me back in. It's like, all right, now I see where this is good. Let me go buy it. Oh yeah, this is fantastic now. And as I say, it certainly got up there, but yes, it wasn't an instant hit.
Got it.
Although, because you said, no, I don't want Spirit Island to always be number 1 on my list. No, that legitimately it wouldn't fit on this list.
Right. One of mine, funny enough, is a CCG, an older CCG from Alderac Games. And this one is, it's called Spycraft CCG. And the reason it hooked me from day one was I don't know if there are any other games where bluffing in poker, is bluffing. It's not outright lying. It's just bluffing is I'm making my bets, making you think I have a better hand than you, right? This particular game, you can actually play a card face down and say, this isn't playing an agent. I'm deploying an agent to your location. I'm deploying a vehicle attached to my agent. And neither of those cards can be an agent or a vehicle. Like, you can absolutely lie. The reason you would do that is so somebody that has a hand of cards, they don't have any agents, they can't defend against all this. They maybe not defend, and you just take over their location without having sent in a single agent. Or they can call you on it and send an agent. I thought the fact that the rule said, play a card and call it what you want. The downside to doing that is the counter to that. It's called exposed. There were so those are some 4 stats on the left side of that mother of clouds there. One of those stats will allow somebody to look at an agent's face or a player's face down card. If ever they expose a face down card for what it's not, meaning I said it's an agent, I flip it over, it's not, then that opponent gets an exposed token. And the exposed tokens is basically you telling the newspapers, telling whatever that this guy's actually a spy, whatever. You now are playing very, very hindered. So if you're going to do that action, you better know what you're doing before you commit to sending in cards face down. It was just so much fun. That was one part. Actually, if you go back to that one card, or any card, I'll show you exactly why. The second reason this would have made a list is in the bottom right corner of every card, there's a little number. Mm-hmm. And that little number in there is called what they called bravado. When I go to attack you and I think I've got it in the bag, let's say I'm hitting you for 5 and you have a defense, it looks like a defense of 2 or 3, but then you flip over your card and it's a defense of 8. I can discard any card from my hand for its bravado cost and up my value, attack value. So you weren't limited by just getting beat by your opponent because he had better cards than you. You know what I mean? You could absolutely build a hand of just high bravado cards for that one time where the opponent thought he had it in the bag, and you just throw that card down and discard it for its value. Like, all of this intrigue and hidden information, I thought was really, really well done for a spy game on top of it all, right?
Interesting one there. I mean, we played a few CCGs when I was young, and I don't think any hooked me from day one, but they were certainly good. Sorry, for that time. I remember there weren't many honorable mentions that I left, but I remember putting Wingspan on there at one point because I thought, like, I love the game. I couldn't remember if it hooked me from day one. It may have done. Maybe it would be in my teens because I do remember really liking it, but I haven't got the memory of that.
Got it.
Like, I can't remember if I did love it in the first game or whether I warmed up to it. But even if I did love it in my first game, I haven't got like a vivid memory in my head saying, oh yeah, I remember this is the trigger why. And that kind of takes it out of my top 10 if that's the case.
Sure.
But still love it. I mean,
yeah, people do. My last one that I had, only had a couple.
Hang on, people do? Does that mean you don't? Yeah. No. Be honest.
Yeah, I don't see the appeal. Played it 1.5 times.
As I say, it's not for everyone, but I say, do not be shy about saying you hate a game. So.
Yeah, I mean, I love to board games, so at the end of the day, I'll almost play anything, except for Gloomhaven.
Fair enough. I mean,
yeah, but Wingspan just didn't do it for me. So yeah, my last one was Revolution by Steve Jackson Games.
Ew. Yeah, that one. Yeah, I know which one you mean. Yes.
Yep.
Although, I can't remember if I played the nice rules or the evil rules. I think it might have been the evil rules, where basically, even if it wasn't any fault of your own, you get knocked down and you can't recover. It's like, well, that sucked. So I might have to play it with the nice rules.
So, from right there, that cover, right? Gold, blackmail, and force. That right there kind of says it all. The fact that you can thematically use any of those things to influence the outcome, outbid people in those certain locations to get your cubes there where they could put their cubes there, and the fact that it was blind bidding, and again, a little bit of bluffing, right? So I guess I have a thing for bluffing, I suppose. But I liked the theme for this so much. If you were really paying attention to what you were doing and how you were doing it, you're like, okay, I'm going to bribe the judge, or I'm going to bribe the the harbor master to put my boat here. Or I'm going to blackmail the harbor master to put my boat here. Those kind of things. And I love that there was like a hierarchy, if I remember correctly. Like force was better than blackmail.
Yeah, it was a weird kind of rock paper scissors thing in a sense, but with more.
It wasn't really
more
rock paper
rules to
scissors. It was a hierarchy, right? So if I chose to punch you, that had more sting than if I chose to blackmail you, which had more sting than I was going to buy you off. I thought that was very interesting. Like, yeah, I would fear a punch in the nose more than somebody mailing a letter to somebody. You know what I mean? That kind of thing.
I don't know. You want to go on Twitter these days? Certainly, I fear blackmail more than force at the moment. But yeah, I can defend myself from someone trying to punch me in the face. It's very difficult to defend yourself from people trying to kill you on Twitter. But
blackmail, yeah.
Exactly. But
so maybe I got the hierarchy backwards too. It's quite possible. But I thought that was neat. That one was more.
Well, it's just the hierarchy works for that time period, just not for this time period.
Fair enough. Yeah.
What else did I have? I had briefly, I'd mentioned like Terramara. I didn't think it was going to be top 10. It was a Eurogame I found on Quinid Games at Essen, and again, it did something in it besides looking great because Michael Menzel does the board. It gave me the thing of, right, here's a bucket load of worker placement spaces, but I like that you had the 3 different tracks to level up, which got you different bonuses, but you couldn't do well on all 3. But it was great that as the round marker ticked down, you basically were able to go to much better spaces, but you could go to them early if you didn't mind losing your worker for so many rounds. And then as the rounds go on, some of these flip over to be slightly bigger spaces, as your expedition is traveling. It just did a lot of really cool little things with mechanics that had been seen before. But like I say, it wasn't quite top 10 material, but as I say, I played it and liked it and thought, oh yeah, I got to take this one home. And the only other one that I can remember, which I think probably would be my 11, would be Coffee Roaster. Because that was an Essen, when I played it in its I can't remember which country officially made it, whether it was Korea or somewhere else, Japan maybe, but when I played this original version, I remember people were talking about it. Eric Summer was mentioning it. I thought, what, a game about roasting coffee? And this was before I even drunk coffee. Before I even liked it. Sorry?
This one's solo only.
But I thought, you know what? I want to diversify a bit. Let's try a game by an Asian publisher that I'd not tried before. And lovely girl sat down, spoke pretty good English, taught me this game and just ran me through it while I did it, and instantly grabbed a copy and took it home with me. I was like, like I say, I still love bringing this out every now and again. Granted, I have this newer version now, which I kind of half regret. I kind of miss that cartoony-esque artwork of the original, but as I say, they're both the same game. But just this cool Zen-like game of like, right, I'm going to do some bag building shenanigans and then pour a little cup of coffee and see how well I can do. It's just nice, simple, little fun puzzle. And I say that probably would have been my 11 because I do remember that time of going in there and sort of getting hooked on it.
I have the similar feelings for that, where I just want to sit down and relax and play a game by myself. Would be Hadrian's Wall.
Oh god, the amount of people who are telling me to play that game.
It didn't really. I mean, I was hooked from day one, but I'll tell you, when I play it with other players, the bummer, and this is why it wouldn't make my list. The bummer is there's zero. Okay, there's not zero interaction, but there's.
Oh yeah, but everybody plays this solo. I don't know anybody who regularly plays this multiplayer.
So I played it live a month ago on Twitch. I went back and watched the live play. I can't even make a video of it. We never talked. We just sat and I'd say you'd see it, but I wouldn't put you through that torture. We were just doing our own thing, and it struck me. I said, "Man, that's what this game is missing: is interaction of some sort."
It's a roll and write. No roll and write has any interaction apart from a little bit in one roll and write, Harvest Dice, which is probably the only roll and write I put my stock behind because it does have a little bit of interaction, or the fact that I actually care about what the other players are doing. Because that one. Sorry?
Cartographers.
That isn't as much interaction as people give it credit for, because people say that one is like, oh yeah, but you draw on each other's board. A maximum of 3 times in the entire game, sometimes less, you will draw something on their board. That's literally
you can wreak havoc when you draw on their boards, though.
But a lot of the times I find it's just a nuisance rather than like, you've stitched me up crazy. It's just like, people made such a big deal of that one.
That's
one, though.
Fair assessment. But Zero in Hadrian's Wall, just FYI. Okay, so Harvest Dice, tell me.
Oh, totally. I mean, people want me to play Hadrian's Wall badly, and if I could have got it from my new sponsor, I would have actually bought it so I could play it. But somebody is going to teach me that rotten game so I can give a verdict on it. I'm not expecting to love it because I'm not a massive Roll and Write fan, but people are like, come on, Garfield games, you like Garfield games, go and do it. And it's like, fine, I will play it. I will give it a fair shot. Harvest Dice, though, I lost it, actually. I forgot to take it home, and I think it's been lost in the library somewhere, and I can't... I probably, hopefully, can find a copy of it somewhere because it's like less than a tenner. But simple roll and write. You roll these dice. You're building a vegetable patch. You're restricted on how you can like group them together. If you can't put a vegetable on, you feed Pip the pig. The pips on the die and get little bonuses and that. But it's cool that the way the interaction works in this is whichever die is left ups the value of that veg, so it's worth more points at the end. And I love that in a dice drafting game. But the reason this one has that little bit of interaction that elevates it for me is that this is all you've got to look at on somebody else's board, right? You can clearly see what their patches are. You can clearly tell, because you've got to group the veggies up, where they can't go. So when you're taking these dice, of which you've only got so many of the tomato, carrot, and lettuce ones, you can tell very quickly which dice will stitch the opponents up more. So if I've got a choice between two, I'm thinking, well, I could take either of the two, really. But hang on, if I take the 6, he can't place that one right there. I'll take that. So it's not like necessarily as direct, but because, I mean, some roll and writes, there's so much scribbling on the thing. I mean, Hadrian's Wall, I mean, I couldn't care less what you were doing on your board. I wouldn't be able to understand the spreadsheet, let alone anything else. But this one, I can. So even when I play this with 4 players, I care about what the other players are doing. And I'm also thinking, well, hang on a minute. You're going last. You're probably going to take a carrot die, which means the tomato one's left, which means that's going up in value. Maybe I should consider taking the tomato then and getting some more tomato. I'd say I actually care what they're doing.
Yeah.
Whereas in most of them, like Welcome to and that, whatever. It's like, I don't care what you scribble on your sheet. Did I cross mine off?
Right.
Yeah, where's that? But and Welcome to the Moon. I mean, I haven't even gone near that one again. It's every time I hear the phrase "roll and write," I just switch off. So I've burnt out on them so long ago.
I told people you need to call them fill in the blanks because you don't roll in every one. You don't roll in Hadrian's Wall. You don't roll in Welcome to. You don't roll in like
I mean, roll and write, flip and write. X and right, whatever. I don't know. There's so many names from now, but regardless of what you do for the first bit, it's the fact that it's just basically writing on a sketch pad. It's not that I hate the roll and writes. It's just they end up being very meh for me. It's like what was one I played? My friend who helps out with Queen games showed me, what's it called? Does it begin with C? There's a roll and write that they've done. Ag. I know this. It's going to bug me.
It's Queen game?
You're the Queen game fan. You should know it.
I have no idea what they've done with a fill in the right blank game.
There was definitely... it wasn't originally a roll and write. They made a spin-off one of it.
Huh.
Oh, come on. You've got to... It wasn't Alhambra, I know that, because Alhambra was at... Copenhagen. That was it. Copenhagen, because Copenhagen
they did
had...
a right version of that?
Yes, because Copenhagen came out as a board game, which I never played.
I have that.
I say that one I never played, but a friend of mine showed me the roll and write version. It's somewhere around. Nope. Copenhagen. It'll be around somewhere, but I'll find it in a sec. But here we go. Re-implemented by Copenhagen Roll and Write. So little one then there. Guys showed me that, and again, at most I could say it was above average, but I played it and found it fine, crossing off and filling up effectively like a Tetris column, but unlocking the different rows to get various bonuses, so it's kind of a bit like the Ganshon Clever type thing, but, at most I could say, oh, well, that was fine, but it was probably one of the better roller rights I played, but what these tend to do is make the original games obsolete, because it's like, well, if you could make it into a roll and write, then why was it a board game?
Right.
But then you get something like Hadrian's Wall, which is the opposite, where it's like, if you've got to make the roll and write this complicated, why is it not a board game? It's like you can't win. Yeah. It's a weird balance.
That thing is severely beefy. That's for sure.
Yes, not bad.
Whenever you do play it, don't try to do everything. That's my only advice to you.
Oh yeah, I figured that would be the case, but
Oh.
At some point I'll grab it if I can get it on credit or as a review thing, or failing that someone can just teach me. I know plenty of people who own it, so it's just a case of sitting down with them and saying, look, please just teach me it.
Yeah.
I don't think it's on an online platform. I think you can get it on TTS maybe, but I'm not sure. It's not on Board Game Arena. But I want to see the physical version. That's what I'm on about. Anyways, right. Whew, 2.25 hours. We better start wrapping this up. So, yeah, top 10 games that hooked us from day one. Very positive. No crossover, sadly, although a couple of not even that major disagreements, frankly, honestly. I mean, most of the games each of us liked that were in the list. I mean, even Cargo Noir, I'm like, meh. I'm not exactly... There's nothing on your list I dislike, honestly.
Right.
They're ones that I've played and gone, yeah, that's cool. Or ones that I actually do like. They just might not have sunk me from day one. And I do want to try Dice Throne and Star Trek Ascendancy ASAP.
And I get to go by Whistle Mountain.
Yeah, Whistle Mountain and Pursuit of Happiness. Definitely go check those two out. You'll be hard pressed to try and find Art Nova or Street Masters, I can tell you that. So that's going to be a bit more tricky. But yep, I say this is about time. It's late here, and I'm sure it's dinner time for the US. So
yeah,
we'll wrap it up. We'll wrap it up there. So cheers for coming on for a second go. It won't be the last.
It's a lot of fun.
And reminds me, I got This War of Mine. Or yeah, I missed that. I'm gonna go watch that at some point. I need to see how that ended. But that'll be good. But yeah, we'll do more of these. Next week I've got Jonathan from Hexy Beast is planned on next week's. We got to do one of the ones that the Patrons really wanted, which was the top 10 worst things in our favorite games. Just because no game is ever flawless. Yeah. Even a 10 out of 10 game, even my favorite game of all time, will have a flaw in it. Or something that's like, I have to warn people about this, or this is a nitpick, but I gloss over it because I love the game that much. They're still bad things. No game is perfect. So we get to talk about 10 things that are like, I mean, to be fair, alright, spoiler alert, we mentioned one earlier, Abyss. Yeah, exactly. We're talking that kind of thing. Yep. Excellent games, but there's something that irks you. So there you go, spoiler alert. Alright, Alright, we're going to say bye for there. So by all means, remember, #support small creators. So go check out Boardroom Gamer, watch some of his YouTube videos. Although, as I say, if you're into Twitch, then by all means, go check it out on there, because that's clearly where the action is.
Yep, absolutely. Thanks for having me on.
As always, there will be more time. So take care, everyone, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.